of 1972, where this is quite a long proclamation, a letter of instruction, but let me read a portion where it said, no, ordering the Press Secretary and the Secretary of National Defense, you are hereby ordered forthwith to take over and control or cause the taking over and control of all such newspapers, magazines, radio and television facilities, and all other media of communications, wherever they are, for the duration of the present national emergency or until otherwise ordered by me or by my duly designated representative. Can you tell us, as a consequence of the declaration of martial law and this letter of instruction number 1, series of 1972, issued by the late former President Marcos, ano nangyari sa ABS-CBN because of this declaration and issuance of letter of instruction?
The letter of instruction number 1 and 1A were implemented. That is why the government then, and during the martial law years, was able to take over the possession and operations of ABS-CBN facilities, Your Honors.
My next question would really require Attorney Almeida Lopez to answer this, because probably none of you has personal knowledge, but I'm very particularly concerned with how the takeover was effected, where armed troops, swooped over the facilities of ABS-CBN, fully armed in full battle gear, just to, I want this answer to demonstrate that it was really an oppressive kind of takeover. Anyway, now if you know, what was ABS-CBN singled out in this widespread takeover by the Marcos regime of the control of different TV stations? Or were there other TV and radio stations that government took over also, as far as control and operations?
The question is if there were other media outlets that were seemingly or similarly situated with ABS-CBN. I think there were. Yeah.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to know if ABS-CBN was singled out, or was the takeover not only true as far as ABS-CBN is concerned, but government also took over the control and operations of other TV stations and radio stations during the martial law?
The letter of instruction, Your Honors, ordered all forms of media. I was just 10 years old then, Your Honor. I did not know if other media companies similarly situated were also taken over. But that is the language of the letter of instruction, Your Honors.
But you did mention, Attorney Rendon, earlier that there was only one TV station that was allowed to operate. That was RPN 9. Is that not a manifestation or indication that all other TV stations were taken over by the government at that time? So that it was not only ABS-CBN, but all other TV stations and radio stations other than RPN 9.
The letter of instruction covers all, but from my reading of the affidavit of Attorney Jake Lopez, it seems that RPN 9 was allowed until its broadcast facilities in Rojas Boulevard burned down, Your Honors.
So in other words, if the letter of instruction applied to all TV stations, what was the reason for governments not taking over the operations and control of RPN 9?
Pardon, Your Honor, I did not quite get the question.
What was
Your
the
Honor,
reason
please.
why RPN 9 was allowed because it was the propaganda arm of the government. For I'm assisting ABS-CBN. The media was many of the outlets were closed down. Arrested were, of course, Manila Chronicle was one of those was closed. ABS-CBN. Media personalities such as Sullivan were arrested, including Mr. Roses, and RPN 9 was retained as the broadcast media of the martial law regime. Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have wanted to hear that from ABS-CBN. And that is the answer that I really expected. The reason why there was one TV station that was allowed to operate because government wanted to retain one TV station that would serve as a propaganda arm of government. All the others that did not cooperate were taken over or closed down. Now, in fact, Mr. Chair, because it was only RPN 9 that was allowed to operate at that time, ABS-CBN entered into a lease agreement with RPN 9. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honors.
Now, the lease agreement was entered into on what year?
What was the last part, please, Your Honors?
Kailan po ang lease agreement na ito ng ABS-CBN with RPN 9? Kailan po nangyari?
The signing of the agreement was in June 8 of 1973.
So June 8 of 1973, that's just like a year after martial law was declared. Is that correct?
Almost less than a year, Your Honors.
Less than a year. In other words, ABS-CBN continued to assert its ownership over the properties, although these were already seized and taken over by government. In fact, the control and operations were already being done by government, and yet ABS-CBN entered into a lease agreement with RPN 9. Do you agree with me, Attorney Rendon, that that is an exercise or an assertion of a right of ownership by ABS-CBN?
That is an attribute of ownership, Your Honor. But at that time, ABS was no longer operating as a broadcast corporation, Your Honor, because it was shut down right after the declaration of martial law.
Yes, we know that, no? Because nag-take over nga ang gobyerno, nag-cease na ang operation niya. Kung may operation man, it was controlled, no, by government. What I'm saying is, despite that, the fact that there was already a takeover by government, ABS-CBN still entered into a lease agreement with RPN 9. So what I'm saying is ABS-CBN, despite of the takeover, continued to assert its ownership over their properties. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor. Kasi nga po, hindi naman nalipat yung mga real estate at mga broadcast equipment. Tinake over lang po.
Ang ibig sabihin, ang ABS-CBN ay hindi pumapayag na hindi na kanila ang pagmamay-ari ng mga properties na tinake over ng gobyerno.
Totoo po yun, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, nabanggit din kanina na meron naka-annotate doon sa titulo ninyo. May naka-annotate na mortgage sometime in 1975. Do you agree, Attorney Rendon, that this is also an exercise of a right of ownership?
Yes, Your Honor. The fact na nangutang at mortgage yung property ay hindi kanila pa rin po yung property na yon.
So all these years, Attorney, even during the martial law, when ABS-CBN had been deprived of control of its properties, the corporation has continued to assert ownership over these properties. And the parties that the corporation entered into, certain contracts with, recognize the ownership of ABS-CBN of the properties that are subject to the said contracts. In other words, like RPN 9, for example, would not have entered into a lease agreement with ABS-CBN if RPN9 did not recognize the ownership of ABS-CBN of the property subject to the lease agreement. Same case with the mortgage agreement. No? The mortgagee with whom ABS-CBN entered a mortgage agreement with would not have also acceded to or agreed to that contract if it did not recognize the ownership of ABS-CBN of the property subject of the mortgage agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Now, may I ask about the mortgage that was annotated in the title? Is it right to say that it was the register of deeds who annotated that annotation in the title?
Yes po, it was annotated in the titles and in the custody of the Register of Deeds, Your Honors.
So nag-annotate po ay ang register of deeds.
Yes po, that is what appears in the title itself, Your Honors.
Now, would it be right to say that the register of deeds would not have agreed or would have refused to annotate that mortgage in the title if the one requesting its annotation was not the legitimate owner or one authorized by the owner of the property subject of the mortgage agreement?
Actually po, Your Honors, under our torrent system, it is a ministerial job, ministerial duty of the Register of Deeds to annotate without even questioning whether or not it is still the owner or not. Basta po may pinarehistro kang dokumento, irerehistro po yan ng Register of Deeds because it is its ministerial duty, Your Honors.
Are you saying that anybody? Are you saying, sir, that anybody can just go to the Register of Deeds and have a contract annotated in the title?
As a matter of law, Your Honor, is the procedure, Your Honors.
Is that absolutely ministerial?
Ano po yun?
Sinasabi ko po, pwede bang ang hindi nagmamay-ari ng property na subject ng mortgage pupunta na lang basta-basta sa Register of Deeds at magparehistro? Sabihin niya, there's a mortgage agreement between me and the owner and I would like this to be registered or annotated in the title. Can anybody just do that? And does Register of Deeds just annotate that without going over the records at least?
Basta po kumpleto ang mortgage
Attorney,
deeds.
I think the question is, can anybody just go there and have the Register of Deeds annotate? Ang point na po ni Congressman Fortun, which I think you want to say is, they just cannot be, it cannot be ministerial. They have to verify. And you have to have the complete documents for it to be verified. Is that correct, Attorney Fortun? I mean, Congressman Fortun?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's exactly the question of this representation.
Pwede na po ba akong sumagot? Yes po, basta kumpleto po, may deed of mortgage. It will annotate the deed of mortgage. Salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer, Attorney Ridon. Let me just go fast forward to the arbitration agreement. Why was there a need to go to arbitration in the first place when all of those properties involved that were seized and taken over during martial law could have been simply returned right away to ABS-CBN?
That was precisely the reason kasi nga po meron monetary claim ang ABS-CBN and the Cory government wanted everything to be transparent and on record. That is why the basis was an agreement to arbitrate. Hindi naman po automatic na panalo na kaagad ang ABS. Lilitisin pa rin po at nilitis at nagkaroon nga ng actually compromise agreement between the government and ABS-CBN na inaprubahan po ng Board of Arbitrators. That was the basis of the decision of the Board of Arbitrators, yung compromise agreement po.
Now, ang tanong ko, itong arbitration agreement that was arrived at by the parties, was this approved only by an arbitration board, or was this further approved by a court of justice?
Ang una po, nagkaroon po ng statement of claims, sumagot po ang gobyerno, at nilitis po ng Board of Arbitrators composed of 3 arbitrators. Nagkaroon po ng decision based on a compromise agreement at saka po pinabalidate din po sa Regional Trial Court of Makati Branch 65 in accordance with the arbitration law po, Republic Act 876. Your Honors.
Attorney Rendon, banggit po kanina na doon po sa arbitration agreement, lumalabas na wala pong binabayaran ang ABS-CBN sa gobyerno batay sa arbitration agreement. But if you look at the arbitration agreement, meron tax liabilities, no, na inimpose, no, doon sa arbitration agreement, except that itong tax liability na to ay i-offset, no, doon sa bayarin din ng gobyerno sa ABS-CBN dahil doon sa paggamit ng properties, no, sa lease mula noong 1986 to 1992. So, is it completely correct to say that walang binabayaran ng ABS-CBN doon sa arbitration agreement na ito?
Meron pong utang yung ABS-CBN na taxes at kinwestiyon niya po ito sa Court of Tax Appeals. At nung nagkaroon nga po ng compromise agreement ay napagkasunduan na i-withdraw yung appeal ng ABS-CBN. So supposed to be po magbabayad ang ABS-CBN. Kaya lang po, mas malaki yung inaward ng arbitration board, kaya in-offset po doon yung pagkakautang ng ABS-CBN sa gobyerno in the form of taxes, Your Honors.
Yeah. Simple lang po yung tanong ko. Whether offset or nagbigay kayo ng cash or whatever form of payment, it's a form of payment. Is that correct?
It's a form of payment po pero hindi po nagbayad ang ABS kasi nga po may utang siya sa taxes.
Hindi po, Attorney Rendon. Kung in-offset yan doon sa bayarin ng gobyerno sa ABS-CBN, bayad yan. I don't think you can say na hindi nagbayad ng ABS-CBN. Kasi kung hindi nagbayad ng ABS-CBN, walang offsetting. Di ba? Since in-offset, binawasan, no, binawasan na yung bayarin ng gobyerno sa ABS-CBN, no, binawasan ng halaga na bayarin ng ABS-CBN in the form of taxes to the government. That's a form of payment. Di ba? I do not think it is right to say that because nag-offset, hindi na nagbayad ang ABS-CBN. Kaya nga in-offset kasi nagbayad ang ABS-CBN. Nangyari nga lang na may bayarin din ng gobyerno sa ABS-CBN at mas malaki ito sa babayaran dapat ng ABS-CBN. So there's a form of payment and there's payment. That offsetting is payment. Do you agree with me, Attorney Rendon?
That is true, Your Honor. Wala pong binayaran ng binayaran din po ng ABS kaya lang hindi in the form of us kasi nga po in-offset doon sa award.
Yun nga po. Yun lang gusto kong matinig sa inyo. Kasi you were saying that the ABS-CBN did not pay kasi in-offset. That offsetting is a form of payment. So ABS-CBN did pay, no, an amount corresponding to tax liabilities to the government, no, under that arbitration agreement. Now, nabanggit na rin po kanina, no, na ang NTC issued ABS-CBN a provisional authority on June 11, 2008, and this agreement cited the arbitration agreement arrived at by the parties, as well as the approval of this agreement by the arbitration board and the confirmation of the same agreement by the regional trial courts. It seems that all agencies concerned have actually approved and agreed with the arbitration agreement reached by the parties. Now, let me just ask you about the Gascon case. No, you said the arbitration proceedings were momentarily suspended because of a case filed by Jose Luis Martin Gascon, or Chito Gascon, who's now currently chairman of the Commission on Human Rights. May I know the issues involved in this case?
Ano po yun? Hindi ko naintindihan. Hindi ko nakuha po yung huling
Sir,
part.
yung pong kaso na inihain ni Jose Luis Martin Gascon laban po kay Executive Secretary Arroyo, ano po yung main issues, no, na involved sa kasong ito?
Yung legal position po ni Mr. Gascon was that it was at a taxpayer suit na kapag that is his legal position na sina-challenge niya na hindi daw pwede kontrato or mag-execute yung gobyerno with ABS-CBN ng agreement to arbitrate. But the Supreme Court said that number one, he had no legal standing and it was not a taxpayer suit. And the Supreme Court gave validity to the first agreement to arbitrate as an ordinary contract between the government and a private entity na hindi diniscuss din nga po doon yung principle of yung winave po yung non-suability ng gobyerno po.
In fact po, sabi ng Supreme Court na yung Executive Secretary Arroyo at that time, no, had the power and authority to enter into the agreement to arbitrate with ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. And that as he acted for and on behalf of the President, when he signed it, the aforesaid agreement is valid and binding upon, not Cory Aquino, but binding and valid upon the Republic of the Philippines. Yun ang sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi po ba? At sabi niya, hindi po exclusive sa korte ang arbitration. Sabi ng Supreme Court, the settlement of controversies is not vested in the courts of justice alone to the exclusion of other agencies or bodies. Sabi ng Supreme Court, whenever a controversy arises, either or both parties to the controversy may file the proper action in court. However, sabi ng Supreme Court, the parties may also resort to arbitration under RA 876, which is a much faster way of settling their controversy compared to how long it would take if they were to go to the courts. And sabi ng Supreme Court, if I may, Mr. Chair, in entering into the agreement to arbitrate, the executive branch of government merely opted to avail of an alternative mode of settling the claim of the private respondent ABS-CBN Corporation for the return of their properties and the TV stations. Sabi din ng Supreme Court, no, na yung immunity of the state from suit cannot be invoked against the claim of the Lopez family. Kasi sabi niya, citing the case of Amigable versus Cuenca, the court held that where the government takes property from a private landowner for public use without going through the legal process of expropriation or negotiated sale, the aggrieved party may properly maintain a suit against the government without thereby violating the doctrine of governmental immunity from suit without its consent. Diba po? Yun ang laman po ng ruling ng Supreme Court sa kasong ito.
Before ABS-CBN replies, the Honorable Fortune, you have reached your limit. After the reply, you may want to say, you may give your last response. ABS-CBN is recognized.
That is stated in the Gascon case, Your Honors.
And this Gascon case ruling has already reached its finality, and it is already final and executory, and this remains until now a valid ruling. It has never been superseded or overturned by any subsequent ruling of the Supreme Court. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. It has never been overturned by any decision of the same Supreme Court, Your Honor.
In other words, as the last question, Mr. Chairman, the transfer of the properties of ABS-CBN that were taken over during the martial law, the government, the transfer of these properties back to ABS-CBN has been ruled by the Supreme Court to be valid and legal, and the same ruling by the Supreme Court until now holds true and has never been overturned or superseded by any other ruling or any law for that matter. Is that correct?
The context, Your Honor, if I may, of the Gascon case merely involves the first agreement to arbitrate executed in 1987. Yun lang po yung tinakal doon sa Gascon case.
Yeah, but in the Gascon case, the Supreme Court said that the arbitration, no, the entering into that arbitration is valid and legal and recognized by the Supreme Court.
Yes, Your Honor, as another mode of settling disputes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Your Honors, for this opportunity.
Maraming salamat po, Congressman Fortun. At sa pagtatanong ni Congressman Fortun ay nagamit niya yung extrang 3 minutes. Kaya meron pang natitirang 9 minutes na extra ang mga co-authors at authors ng ABS-CBN franchise. Ngayon naman po ay dadako tayo sa ating minamahal na Deputy Speaker Marcoleta na pinahiram po o pinagamit ng oras nila Congressman Jun Datol, Congressman Ebcas, Congressman Guya, Congressman De Jesus, at Congressman Vice Chairman J.J. Suarez. Kaya magkakaroon po ng total na 30 minuto si Congressman D.S. Marcoleta. You're now recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Gagamitin ko po sana yung affidavit ni Attorney Augusto Almeda Lopez, may petsang August 8, 1994. Pero nandito po ba siya?
Salamat po, Your Honors. Wala po siya ngayon dito, but kanina po napag-usapan na iimbitahin din nata po siya through Zoom.
Paano po kaya ito? Pwede po bang ipahayag ninyo sa kapulungan ito na kahit wala siya, kayo po ay magsisilbing siya ang tatayo para patunayan po itong mga nakasaad sa kanyang affidavit? Ibig sabihin po, parang kayo na rin po ang gumawa nito sapagkat sa tingin ko ito lamang po yung nakita kong nagsaysay ng mga kaganapan sa inakala ninyong pagkakabawi ninyo ng ABS-CBN mula po nang ito ay makuha noong panahon ng martial law. So kung titindigan po ninyo na lahat po ng nakasaad dito ay pinututunayan ninyo na nangyari at ito ay pinatunayan ni Attorney Augusto Almeda Lopez, dito po ibabase ko yung ilang mga katalungan ko. Kayo po ba ay binigyan po niya kayo ng karapatan na kayo ang tumistigo para sa kanya dito sa kanyang salaysay, sinumpa ang salaysay?
Mr. Chair, baka ho pumayag kayo na sa Wednesday na lang po sagutin ang mga tanong tungkol sa affidavit ni Attorney Lopez kasi siya mismo ang pupunta dito on Wednesday po. Kami po, wala po kaming personal knowledge doon sa mga...
Yun nga po ang Mr. Carlo Lopez kasi sa Carlo Katigbak. Ito po kasing inyong binasa kanina, Attorney Rendor, mukhang halaw lamang dito sa kabuuan ng kanyang salaysay.
Congressman Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, yan pong iyong salaysay na binabanggit ay parte ng mga dokumento na sinumite ng ABS-CBN. Kaya po ang presumption po ng committee ito ay dapat alam ng ABS-CBN, lalo-lalo na ng counsel ng ABS-CBN, yung nilalaman ng lahat po ng dokumento na sinubmit po ng ABS-CBN. Pinayagan po ng chairman ng committee ito na ipagpatuloy ni Congressman Marcoleta ang kanyang mga tanong kahit po wala yung mismong gumawa ng dokumentong nabanggit. Ngunit yung hindi po masasagot ng ABS ngayong puntong ito ay ibabalik po natin na katanungan sa kanila sa susunod na hearing, Congressman Marcoleta. Congressman Zarate, do you have a point of order?
No, just an interjection, Mr. Chair. In fairness to the counsel of ABS-CBN, he was saying that he was basing this on the documents they submitted, no? And as counsel, he can only probably answer questions based on the existence of those documents. Then since ang gusto ho ng ating kasama, kagalang-galang na Marcoleta, ay yung personal knowledge mismo doon sa gumawa nung salaysay, kaya sinasabi nila hindi masasagot ito ni Attorney Rendor. No? So by Wednesday, I think they already agreed na dahil ang katanungan ay doon sa salaysay ay yung tao mismo nag-execute noon. Dahil as a counsel, he can only say that this affidavit exists and these are the facts stated in this, these are the statement in this particular affidavits.
Hearing suspended. Hearing resumed. Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, sa paragraph 18 po, paragraph 17 po ng affidavit ni Attorney Almeida Lopez ay nagbabanggit po siya ng 18 parsela ng lupa allegedly belonging to ABS-CBN na kung saan nakatayo po yung kanilang mga radio stations, transmitter towers, at mga buildings. Bakit po kaya isa lamang na titulo ang kanilang isinabit sa atin, Mr. Chair? Nasaan po yung 17 ibang titulo para naman po sa pagre-revisa ng committee ito?
ABS-CBN.
May I be recognized, Mr. Chair? Sir, we undertake to submit copies of these documents. Due to lack of time, we were not able to photocopy the other titles.
Medyo nagkakaroon po kasi tayo ng konting kabagalan dahil nga po hindi ninyo nagagawa lahat ang dapat ninyong isubmit. Katulad po nito, Mr. Chair, ito pong affidavit na to, kapag binasa po ninyo sa kanyang kabuuan, nagbanggit siya ng napakaraming annexes. Yung pong naka-attach na annexes dito po sa affidavit na ito, Mr. Chair, 5 lamang. Annexes C, D, E, F, and G. May binanggit po rito na 13 pero hindi kasali sa kanyang affidavit. Sa makatwid, ang lahat po ng annexes na dapat nandito sa affidavit nito, nawala 25, Mr. Chair. So, subject to submission of all these annexes that will support the affidavit signed by Mr. Attorney Almeida Lopez, I will continue, Mr. Chair. Ito pong nag-iisang titulo na isinabit ninyo, may nakita po akong napakarami pong lien annotations. Siyam na annotation ng pagkakasanla, 5 amendments to the mortgages, 5 supplements to the indenture in favor of Equitable PCI Bank, BPI, Capital Corporation, BDO, Universal Bank. Alam po ba ninyo kung ano yung total obligation nitong titulong ito? Kasi hindi ko po mabasa kung ilan po yung walang numero, medyo malabo po yung kopya ko. Sa kanyang kabuuan, sa napakarami pong pagkakasanla, alam po ninyo kung ilan ang total nito?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, po hindi ko po alam ang total at meron naman din po siguro mga naka-annotate dyan na kung nabayaran na po ito kasi kung minsan meron namang cancellation of the title.
Tama po kayo, merong 5 cancellations pero 10 yung sanla, kaya may 4 pang natitira. Yung po kayang 17 na natitira na maaari nating makita, ganito rin po kaya yung sitwasyon nila. Ibig ko sabihin encumbered din kaya sila, heavily encumbered sa palagay nyo?
I have no personal knowledge of that, Your Honor.
Dito po sa paragraph 13 ng affidavit ni Attorney Almeida, sabi po niya, with the arbitrary and unwarranted seizure of our radio and television stations, the detention of media executives, the closure of most newspaper companies and broadcast stations, the lifting, baka ibig ko niya sabihin dito, suspension of the writ of habeas corpus, we felt that the powers that be at that time could just do anything that they please. Is this a statement of fact or an expression of opinion?
Yan po yung nakasaad sa kanyang affidavit,
Tama po.
Your
Ang
Honor.
tanong ko po sa inyo, is this a statement of fact or an expression of opinion?
Palagay ko po the best person na makakasagot po niyan ay si Attorney Almeida Lopez po.
Nabasa po ba ninyo itong sinulat niya? Kasi the unwarranted and arbitrary seizure, pansariling opinion niya po yun. Tama po ba? Maaari nating sabing unwarranted and arbitrary, depende po sa pagkakakita natin sa pangyari. Pero maaaring ibang tao, hindi ganun po yung appreciation. Kasi po, kapag binasa natin yung paragraph 36 ng kanyang affidavit, ang tinitindigan lamang po niya doon, this affidavit is executed to attest to the truth of the foregoing facts. Ibig sabihin, kung ano lamang po ang nangyari. Pwede pong, huwag nyo nang sagutin yon kung sakasakaling hindi kayo komportable, attorney. Dito po sa paragraph 24 ng kaparehong affidavit, sinasabi po rito, April 17, 1986, si dating Senador Lorenzo Tañada ay sumulat kay President Cory to return the facilities. At doon naman po sa paragraph 25, ang sabi niya, July 1986, the Office of the President officially cleared ABS request to resume its broadcast operations. Paragraph 31 naman po, 28, paragraph 31 ang sabi po niya, since September 1986, PTB4 had been gradually returning and relinquishing works access in the broadcast center. At doon po sa paragraph 28, January 6, 1987, the Office of the President of ABS-CBN signed an arbitration agreement. Nandito po ito, kung susundan po ninyo, madali naman po. Nakita niyo po ba?
Nakita ko po, Your Honors.
Salamat po. Binanggit ko po itong mga timelines na to, attorney, dahil yung amin pong secretariat, ito pong committee ng legislative franchises, gumawa rin po ng technical report para lamang po makita yung pagkakapareho o hindi pagkakapareho nitong timelines na binanggit ko. Ito pong mga datos na nakuha ng aming secretariat sa committee ng legislative franchises ay kinuha naman po nila yung kanilang mga facts sa dalawang kaso na dinesisyonan ng Korte Suprema. Ito po yung ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation et al. Versus Office of the Ombudsman, GR number 133347, October 15, 2008. At saka yung pong nabanggit na ninyong isa, Gascon et al. Versus Arroyo, GR number 78389, October 16, 1989. Will you stipulate that based on the two decisions resolved by the Supreme Court, ito pong mga timelines na ito, meron pong nagkaparehong isa katulad po noong April 17, nandito rin po lumitaw, on April 17, 1986, Lopez family through counsel ex-Senator Lorenzo Tañada requested President Aquino to order the return of TV stations Channel 2 and 4 to Lopez family. Nagkaroon lang po ng konting pagkakaiba, pero papayag po ba kayo na Korte Suprema naman po ang nag-analyze ng facts at abogado naman kayo, ang kapag naglatag ng factual milieu or factual antecedents ang Korte Suprema, talagang malinaw naman po yung sa admission ng parties at saka yung mga records na isinamite ng dalawang partido. Tama po ba yun?
Tama po yun, Your Honors.
Lumilitaw po kasi, on June 13, 1986, the Lopez family also made a written request to the PCGG for the return of TV station Channel 2. Ito po ay mula po doon sa halaw doon sa dalawang binanggit kong mga kaso. Katapos po, on July 17, 1986, PCGG sent a letter to the Board of Administrators directing the turnover of TV Channel 2 frequency and radio frequencies DWOK 630 kHz and DWWW 101, both in Metro Manila.
Tungkol po doon sa factual findings ng Supreme Court in the two cases po ay sa ngayon po tayo doon.
Okay.
But yung tungkol po doon sa huling tanong niyo po ay tungkol doon sa ano po ba yan?
Attorney, ito po, para madali tayo, ito yung factual findings lang naman po. Palagay ko, hindi naman yung pagdududahan, yung pagkakalatag ng Korte Suprema ng facts. At ito naman po ay kinuha lamang ng technical staff namin. Mga abogado rin po ito dito sa secretariat ng aming committee. Tutuloy ko lang po, dalawa na lang. On July 21, 1986, the corresponding order by the PCGG for the turnover of said frequencies were issued. And then on August 6, September 6, 1986, TV station Channel 2 and radio stations were turned over to ABS-CBN on 14 December 1986. ABS-CBN resumed its operation. So ito po yung importante lang. September 6, 1986, yung TV station Channel 2 at saka radio stations na turn over po sa ABS-CBN. At noong 14 September 1986, nag-resume na po ng operations ang ABS-CBN. Ito po yung factual findings. Kung tatanggapin po ninyo ito na lang ang gamitin natin sapagkat medyo mga araw lang naman ang pinag-iba rito, isa naman tumama naman po yung kay Attorney Lopez. Mache-check naman po ninyo sa mga records na ito po talaga yung nangyari.
Opo, Your Honors.
Okay.
That is the factual findings of the Supreme Court in the two cases,
Salamat
Your
po.
Honors.
Dito po sa paragraph 27, Attorney, of the same affidavit, it was alleged that, I will quote, the office of the President, that for the sake of complete transparency, the question of ownership should be submitted to an arbitration committee where ABS-CBN could present its torrents titles, plural po yun, to all the properties being claimed and also proof of ownership over the broadcast equipment in Bol Avenue, Quezon City, and those in the provinces. Nakasulat po ito, Attorney. Tama po ba?
Totoo po yun, Your Honors.
Sa makatwid po, dito ay ang opisina po ng dating Pangulong President Cory, sabi po niya, for the sake of complete transparency, yung question of ownership should be submitted to an arbitration committee. Tama naman po yun, hindi ba? To the credit of the former President, I think she wanted a complete transparency and submission of all documents in order to prove ownership of ABS-CBN once and for all.
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, salamat po. Mr. Chair, yun pong directive na yun ni President Cory Aquino, meron pong basis talaga eh. As a matter of fact, Attorney, in an executive order number 11 signed by former President Cory Aquino, dated April 8, 1986. Ito po ang title niya, no? Creating the Board of Administrators for Banahaw Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, Radio Philippine Network, RPN, and International Broadcasting Corporation, IBC, television and radio stations, defining its powers and functions and for other purposes. Basahin po natin ang dahan-dahan yung unang saknong. Itong whereas, Mr. Chair and Attorney, whereas the Chairman of the Presidential Commission on Good Government had requested the temporary sequestration of the facilities, property, and equipment of BBC Channel 2, RPN Channel 9, and IBC Channel 13, located in Broadcast City, Capitol Hills, Quezon City, because substantial resources of government financial institutions were utilized in their acquisition and expansion by the owners who remain unidentified, and in order to properly maintain the assets and ensure continuous dissemination of true and accurate information to the people, pending investigation by the Commission and until the question of their true ownership is determined. Dito po, Mr. Chair, napakalinaw. Binabanggit po rito na kahit po ang ating pamahalaan ay namuhunan ng substantial resources, ang ating mga financial institutions were utilized in their acquisition and expansion by the owners who remain unidentified. Dito po, Attorney, hindi pa po kilala kung sino tunay na may-ari. Ito po ay executive order ni former President Cory Aquino. The very reason why, Mr. Chair, that the Board of Administrators were organized is for the purpose of being able to really determine the true owners of these facilities. Hindi po ba yun ang ibig sabihin nito, Attorney?
Mr. Chair, may be recognized po. The executive order po refers to Channel 2 BBC, RPN 9, and IBC 13 located in Broadcast City po. Hindi po ABS-CBN po ang pinag-uusapan ng executive order. Salamat po.
Pero ang sinasabi po kasi, facilities, property, equipment of BBC Channel 2. Kasama rin po yun, hindi ba? Hindi po natin itinatanggi na ang BBC Channel 2 ay po yung ABS-CBN ngayon.
Broadcast City po ang nakasulat po dito. So ang binabantay, ang sinasaad lang po nung EO ang pinagbabanta, the basis of our response po. This is not ABS-CBN po.
Dito bang BBC Channel 2, hindi ba yung ABS-CBN?
Hindi po.
Bakit po nyo sinabi yun? Kasi po yung BBC Channel 2, yun din po yung ABS-CBN. Dahil nung naisara po yun, at napunta nga sa gobyerno, tinawag na BBC Channel 2. Ngayon, dito po, kasama po yung Channel 9 at saka yung IBC 13. Ang sinasabi po rito, pinagkagastahan ng gobyerno to at kailangan tukuyin natin ang tunay na may-ari. Hindi bali po kung gano'n ang pahayag ninyo, pero ito po ang nilalaman ng April 8, 1986 Executive Order number 11.
Excuse me, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, yung NTC po yata ay kasama natin via Zoom. Gusto nyo bang tanongin ang NTC? Tungkol sa BBC Channel 2?
Tsaka na po muna yung NTC, Mr. Chair.
Sige po.
Ang katotohanan po nito, Attorney, doon sa binasa kong paragraph 27, may idinugtong pa po roon eh. Ganito po yung nakalagay. Malacanang wanted the process public and formal with the proceedings properly recorded. Dito po ang pinag-uusapan natin ay yung pagbabalik ng ABS-CBN sa inyo na nagmula na nga po sa initiative ng Opisina ng Pangulo for complete transparency kung saan ay ipakikita ninyo ang lahat ng mga katibayan ng pagmemayari. Pero ang sabi ng Malacanang, Malacanang wanted the process public and formal with the proceedings properly recorded. Tama po ba yun, Attorney? So, pwede ko po bang ipalagay na kompleto po tayo sa proceedings nung sinabi ni former President na kailangan yung arbitration committee ay maging formal, maging public, at ito ay properly recorded. Pwede ko po bang ipalagay na ang mga records nitong arbitration proceedings na ito ay talagang nandyan pa at maaari ninyong isumite sa ating committee para naman sa aming sariling appreciation?
Pakipindot po yung inyong mikropono.
Mr. Chair, Your Honor, meron pong secretariat yung arbitration board po. Sila po yung may recorded po lahat ng proceedings, may mga transcript din po yun, and lahat po ng submissions. It's just that it is an arbitration board. Hindi ko na po alam kung nasaan po yung records noon, nung arbitration board itself.
Nasaan po yung arbitration board ngayon? Nasaan po ba yung opisina nila ngayon?
Yun po, nag-umpisa po kaming nag-hearing dito po sa Quezon City at saka po noon sa HIGC. Kasi nga po, to my recollection, malapit po doon ang opisina ng Government Corporate Council.
Hindi po kasi ganun ang sinasabi rito sa affidavit. Kung titingnan po ninyo dito sa paragraph 28, parang ang proceedings po ay ginanap sa Executive House, Legislative Building sa Maynila. Dito po sa paragraph 28, yun po yung sinasabi. Ngayon po, hindi po ba kayo naging interesado na makakuha kayo ng records? Ito po ay arbitration ng pagmeme-ari ng ABS-CBN. Sa palagay ko po, ito po isa na sa pinaka-importanting record na gusto ninyong magkaroon kayo. Hindi po ba? Bakit po wala kayong record at gusto pa ninyo na hanapin natin yung secretariat po ng arbitration? Baka wala na rin po yun. Ibig sabihin ba, wala tayong makukuhang public records nito?
Meron din po kaming mga original records tulad po nitong decision mismo ng Board of Arbitrators.
Tsaka na po tayo doon. Ito munang, kasi po iba yung proceedings. Sa proceedings po kasi, ang sabi ng opisina ng dating Pangulong Cory, utmost transparency. Okay? Ang process po gusto niya maging public and formal. Kaya nga itatanong ko po sa inyo, kung public at saka formal, saan-saan naganap ito, sino yung participants, para malaman natin kung talaga namang nakatupad doon sa kagustuhan ng Malacanang na maging public ang proseso at saka maging formal. Kaya lang po namin hinahanap yung records ng proceedings. Kasi sila po yung nagsabi, properly recorded. So kailangan po tindigan ninyo na kung properly recorded ito, ay may sasubmit ninyo sa committee ito yung complete records ng arbitration proceedings. Saan naganap, sino yung participants. Kasi kung wala pong participants, hindi po public ito. Tama po ba?
Mr. Chair, pwede na po ba akong sumagot?
Opo.
Mr. Chair, yung arbitration hearings were held at the 6th floor Philippine Sugar Center, North Avenue, Diliman, Quezon City. At yung iba naman po sa HIGC Boardroom, 5th floor, Morning Star Center, 347, Senator Hill, Puyat Avenue, Jupiter Side, Makati, Metro Manila. Binabasa ko lang po yung original na decision ng arbitration board na pirmado po ng tatlong miyembro ng arbitration board na yun po.
Mamaya na po tayo pumunta ron, no? So sa lahat po ng lugar na pinangyarihan ng arbitration, meron pong proceedings siyempre yun. Ito po yung complete record na gusto ng Malacanang na magkaroon ang pagdinig na yan. Hindi po ba? Sa lahat ng pagkakataon na kayo'y nagganap ng arbitration, kumpleto po yung mga records natin.
Recorded po yung proceedings. Meron pong stenographer.
So, itindigan po ninyo na yung mga records na yan ay pwede po ninyong isumiti sa ating committee para sa ganun po, sa lalong madaling panahon, mabasa naman po namin. Sa lahat po ng pinangyarihan ng arbitration, dapat po recorded lahat ito.
As yung board itself po, hindi ko na po alam kung nasaan na po yung records nun. Kasi meron din po silang records.
Kayo na lamang po yung record ninyo. Siguradong may record naman kayo. Hindi naman po ako naniniwala. Napaka-importante pong arbitration ito. Ito po ang panggagalingan ng pagbabalik sa inyo ng inyong lahat na kine-claim na maibalik sa inyo. Hindi naman po siguro kami maniniwala na wala po kayong record. Sapagkat ito po ang gusto ng Malacanang. Nakasulat po ito eh. Sa mga meron po kayong record.
Mr. Chair, meron po kaming record bilang abogado ng ABS-CBN po.
Mr. Chair, mukhang hindi po kami nagkakaintindihan eh. Ito pong arbitration, ang sabi po ng Malacanang, there should be complete, basahin ko na para hindi ko magkamali, complete transparency. The question of ownership should be submitted to an arbitration committee. Complete transparency, Mr. Chair. Ang question po dito o ang issue is ownership. Kaya nga ang sabi, ipakita lahat ang ang reliable o mapagtitiwalang mga ebidensya para sa ganon, maipakita ng ABS-CBN na silang may-ari nito. At sabi pa ng Malacanang, it should be public and formal and properly recorded. Ito po yung hinahanap namin sapagkat mismo ng opisina ng dating Pangulong Cory Aquino, and to her credit, siya po ang may kagustuhan nito. Ngayon po, gusto naming makita nasaan po yung mga records. Sapagkat ito lang, ang records na yon ang magpapatunay talaga na kapag present kayo ng mga ebidensya at talaga namang makikita doon na kayo pala ang may-ari. Kaya gusto naming makita yung mga records. Ngayon po, sabi po rito sa affidavit na ito, dalawa pong agreement to arbitrate, hindi po ba? Agreement to arbitrate. Dalawa po yun. Isang pinirmahan ni Attorney Almeida Lopez at isa naman na meron kayong binago sapagkat may konti kayong gustong idagdag. Kaya dito po sa kanyang affidavit, dalawang agreement to arbitrate ang nakalagay. Ngayon po, ang arbitration po, kayo na po ang nagsabi kanina, na ginamit pa nga ninyo yung Republic Act 876 sapagkat ito yung batas tungkol sa arbitration. Siyempre po natapos yung arbitration, hindi po ba?
Opo, natapos po,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Kanina pong tinatanong kayo ni Congressman Rufus Rodriguez, you made reference to an arbitral award. Tama po ba yun?
Totoo po yun, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Nasaan po yung kopya ng arbitral award?
Humihingi po kami ng certified true copy sa RTC. Dito po, meron po akong hawak ngayon, yung original mismo na arbitral award or decision ng arbitration board. Nandito po sa akin ngayon.
Ano po yung hawak ninyo, attorney? Baka hindi po tayo magkapareho ng hinahawakang dokumento. Pwede po ba niyong banggitin kung anong titulo ng hinahawak niyong dokumento?
Ito po yung decision dated May 23, 1995 with the original signatures of the chair, Muerfina Melencio Herrera, Mr. Chair, and then si Oscar Garcia for the Republic of the Philippines, and si Attorney Andres S. Bautista as nominee of ABS-CBN.
Attorney, meron po akong kopya, kahit na medyo malabo pero nababasa ko compromise agreement. Ito po ba yung sinasabi ninyo?
Meron pa rin po kaming pinirmahan na compromise agreement. In fact, nandun po yan nakalapalaman sa NTC decision.
Ngayon, kung binabanggit po ninyo compromise agreement, hindi po yun ang arbitration. Kasi po ang sinabi ng opisina ng dating Pangulong Cory Aquino, arbitration, hindi po compromise agreement.
Mr. Chair, yung compromise agreement po, that was the result of the arbitration proceedings. Then after that po, if I may be allowed to explain, nagkaroon po ng judgment yung arbitration board based on the compromise agreement between the government and ABS-CBN po.
Hindi po yata ganun ang proseso ng arbitration, attorney. Kung binasa po ninyo yung batas, yung arbitration po, arbitration, yung compromise agreement, iba po yun. Hinahanap po natin dito yung record ng arbitration na mismong ang opisina ng dating Pangulong Cory Aquino ang nagtakda. Sinabi niya, kailangan transparent, kailangan public, kinakailangan formal, and properly recorded. Hindi po natin pinag-uusapan ang compromise agreement. Ang pinag-uusapan po natin dito, yung arbitral award na sinasabi ninyo kanina kay Congressman Rodriguez, kasi po sa arbitral award, doon po sasabihin Kapag tiningnan po ninyo yung proceedings, maliwanag pong naipakita ninyo kayo ang may-ari, merong reception of evidence, wala pong iniwan sa litigation sa court yun Hanggang sa magkaroon ng award, makikita doon sa pinaka-last paragraph, kung tawagin po yung disposition, talagang pinatitibay ng arbitral award na kayo po, ABS-CBN, ang tunay na may-ari. Pero may proseso yun. Ang sinasabi po ninyo is a compromise agreement. Hindi po ganun ang sinabi ng opisina ng Presidente. Kung babasahin po natin itong salaysay na ginawa ni Attorney Almeida Lopez. Attorney.
Mr. Chair, nagkaroon po kami ng paglilitis. May mga testigo po, prinsinta. At pagkatapos po nun, nag-offer po ang ABS-CBN na instead of 140 million, gawin na lang pong 100 million. Tumawad po ang gobyerno, Mr. Chair, and napagkasunduan na 97.5 million na lamang po. Kaya nga po after that, nag-compromise agreement na lang para matapos na po yung proseso at yun naman po ang pinagbasihan ng decision ng arbitral board noong May 23, 1995. Meron po kami bilang abogado po, Mr. Chair, mga records pero po sa haba ng panahon po ay medyo meron din po siguro mga kulang na doon. Pero ako mismo po may personal record po ang aming law firm na humandle po ng arbitration proceedings. Your Honor.
Mr. Chair, iba po yung sinasabi ko, iba naman ang sinasabi nila. Iba po kasi ang arbitration proceedings sa isang compromise agreement. Kanina po, nilay down ko na po yung premises, Attorney, na ang gusto po ng Pangulo, arbitration. Kasi po doon yung ipakikita in a very transparent manner yung inyong mga katibayan ng pagmimayari. Yung sinasabi po ninyong compromise agreement, yung claim po ninyo sa gobyerno, di umano sa pagkakagamit ng inyong mga pasilidad, at yun naman ang claim ng gobyerno sa inyo. Yung compromise agreement po ay offsetting agreement na kung saan lumilitaw na yung utang nyo sa gobyerno in-offset ng claim ninyo sa gobyerno. Ganun po yung nangyari ron. Pero dito po sa arbitration agreement na isinasalaysay sa affidavit na ito, wala pong closure dito eh. Wala pong arbitral award na kagaya ng sinabi nyo kay Congressman Rodriguez. Sa arbitral award lamang makikita pagkatapos ng appreciation of evidence na talagang ang ABS-CBN nakapagpatibay sa marami niyang ebidensya na siyang may-ari ng lahat ng pasilidad na gustong mabalik sa kanya. Hindi po nangyari ito eh. Wala po kayong record na ganito eh. Huwag po ninyong sasabihin yung compromise agreement. Kung babasahin ninyo, mga halaga lamang yun eh. Paano nyo mapapatunayan po, Attorney, na katulad ng binabanggit ninyo, meron kayong claim sa gobyerno. Example, meron kayong claim na binawasan na 97,500,000. Hindi po nyo napatunayan na kayo nga ang may-ari. Pagkatapos po, yung utang naman na sinisingil sa inyo, 13,291,000 at saka 54,294. Kapag pinagsama po ninyo yon, sa claim ninyo sa gobyerno, lilitaw meron pa pong utang ang gobyerno sa inyo na 29 million. Ito po yung kinompromise ninyo. Hindi po kailanman nakikita rito yung tungkol sa pagpipresenta ninyo ng pagmimay-ari. Wala pong nangyari sa mga records na kayo ay nagkaroon ng pagkakataon at napatunayan ninyo sa pamamagitan ng ebidensya na kayo nga ang may-ari. Ang pinag-uusapan na rito, claims na lamang po eh. Claims from and to. From Philippine government at saka kayo. Yun po yung kinompromise ninyo. Pero po yung paglilinaw, kung napatunayan nga ninyo in a very transparent manner, by way of arbitration, based on the desire of the office of the President that it should be public, it should be formal, and properly recorded, wala pong nangyaring ganon. Records are silent on that score. Ito po yung nangyari rito, Mr. Chair. Pwede po ninyo sabihin na mali ako, pero kung kailangan magpatunay Attorney, iba po yung arbitration, iba po yung compromise agreement. Huwag nating iso-shortcut doon. Ipalitan mo po muna natin na sa arbitration, lumitaw po kayo ang may-ari. At maaaring mula dun sa yugto na yon, po pwedeng mag-compromise na kayo. Hindi po pwedeng mauna po yung compromise, walang pagpapatunay sang-ayon doon sa kagustuhan ng Presidente ng Pilipinas noong panahon na yon. Nasaan po yung complete transparency? Nasaan po yung sinasabi that ABS-CBN should submit all proofs necessary, hindi lamang po sa Bohol Avenue, kung hindi yung mga probinsya na sinasabi rito. Wala pong record na ganun eh.
Mr. Chair, pwede na ho ba akong sumagot? Meron po kaming formal offer of evidence after presenting our witnesses and witnesses po ng gobyerno. At instead nga pong humaba pa yung proseso, the parties came up with a compromise agreement. Hindi na, naging yun po ang basihan, Mr. Chair, ng decision ng arbitral board. Kanya nga po yung sinasabi niyo pong transparency and then recorded. Meron pong record ang arbitration board. It's just that we can no longer locate kung sino po yung secretariat po. But we will try our best. Pero kami po, as lawyers, meron po kaming sarili naming record at nagkaroon po yan ng pre-trial brief, nagkaroon bago mag-trial, sinamarize yung issues. And yun pong issue kasi ng ownership po ay hindi na po yung issue sa arbitration, kundi compensation na lang po ang pinag-usapan talaga doon, Your Honors, Mr. Chair.
Kung po nating papalitan ang pangyayari, Attorney, hindi po ganun ang sinaysay ni Attorney Augusto Almeda. Nagsimula po siya sa pag-create ng isang arbitration committee para doon kayo sa pamamagitan ng isang complete transparent process na kung saan kayo po ay makapag-present ng inyong mga torrents titles to all the properties being and also proof of ownership over broadcast equipment in Bohol Avenue, Quezon City and in the provinces. Yun po yung sinasabi. Pagkatapos senior cut ninyo, ang sinasabi ninyo sa akin, nagkaroon na lang kayo ng compromise agreement. Bakit po kayo ay lalabag doon sa gusto mangyari ng opisina ng Presidente? Na kailangan arbitration, which should be public, which should be formal, and which proceedings should be properly recorded. Yun lamang po ang makakapagsabi kung talagang nakapag-present kayo ng ebidensya na kayo nga ang may-ari. Ito lamang po ang sinasabi ng record. Huwag po nating dadagdagan yun. Kung nagkaroon man kayo ng compromise agreement, darating tayo sa yugto na yun, pero yung pagpapatibay ng pagmimay-ari, yun ang unahin natin. Ito po yung nawawala, Mr. Chair. Tutuloy ko na po.
Mr. Chair, just a point of information.
Congressman Zarate, do you have a point of order?
Point of information, Mr. Chair. Kasi nabanggit yung Republic Act 876, yun yung batas sa arbitration. At in Section 20 of that law, inaalaw po ang compromise agreement. No? Ang sabi po rito, in the event that the parties to an arbitration have, during the course of such arbitration, settle their dispute, they may request of the arbitrators that such settlement be embodied in an award which shall be signed by the arbitrators.
Maraming
So,
salamat, Congressman
that's the point of information,
Zarate.
Mr. Chair.
Pero sa pagkakaintindi po ng chairman ng joint committee ito, ay ang tinatanong po ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta ay kung sila ba ay nakasunod sa inatas na batas noong panahon ni Cory Aquino.
Yes, Mr. Chair, because this law is a 1950s law on the arbitration. So malinaw po dito na kahit na nag-undergo kayo ng process of arbitration, gaya na nabanggit doon sa affidavit ni Attorney Almeda, ay in the course of that arbitration, pwede kayong mag-compromise. Hindi ho totoo yun na hindi pwedeng mag-compromise settlement.
Maraming salamat sa paglilinaw ni Congressman Zarate. Bagamat maaaring ipagpatuloy ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta ang kanyang pagtatanong, dahil ang punto po ng pagtatanong ni Congressman Marcoleta ay hindi naman kung legal yung nangyaring compromise agreement, ang tinatanong niya ay kung may tinalunan bang batas doon po sa paggawa ng compromise agreement. Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, you may continue.
Yung pong agreement to arbitrate, ang petsa nito ay meron pong 1986, merong 1993. Dalawa po kasi yun, yung binabanggit natin kanina. Tama po yun?
Tama po yun, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yung pong sinasabi po ninyong desisyon na compromise agreement ay may petsang May 23, 1995. At kanina pa nga po niyo sinasabi na doon po natin gustong lundagin ang pangyayari, hindi pa natin napagtibay yung arbitration, dito na po tayo sa compromise agreement. Meron pa kayong binabanggit na judgment ng RTC Branch 65 na ang petsa naman nun ay June 23, 1995. Di po ba?
Totoo po yun, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Kahit na ipalagay po natin, palagay lang po, ano, granting that the compromise agreement substituted what is supposed to be an arbitral award per directive of the office of the President. Eh nangyari po, natapos po yung compromise agreement, allegedly, doon po sa claims ninyo, May 23, 1995, pinagtibay ng judgment ng Makati RTC Court, June 23, 1995. Pero, Attorney Rendon, na-take over na po ninyo ang Channel 2 at saka radio stations, September 1986. Natapos po ang tinatawag po ninyong arbitration, kahit na hindi totoong arbitration sa compromise agreement, 1995. 9 na taon bago magkaroon kayo ng compromise agreement, pero nakuha nyo na ang ABS-CBN 1986 at nakapagsimula na kayo na mag-ere September 14, 1986. Tama po ba yun?
Tama
Paano
po
po
yun,
nangyari
Your Honor.
nakapag-take over kayo kagad, pero 9 na taon pa ang bibilangin natin para lang pag-usapan yung tungkol sa arbitration at sumunod pang mga compromise agreement. Ano po yung legal basis ng pagkaka-take over ninyo samantalang sinabi na nga ni Mrs. Aquino, mag-arbitrate kayo. Kailangan nating matukoy ang tunay na pagmimiyari. Pero, lumilitaw po sa pangyayari, nakapag-take over na kayo 9 years earlier before these compromise agreements were finally done. Di ba ganun nangyari? Ano po yung legal basis ng pagkaka-take over ninyo?
Yung agreement to arbitrate po, na pinayagan po ng Presidente ko.
Attorney, mag-arbitrate pa lang eh. An agreement to arbitrate is not the arbitration itself or the arbitral award. It's not even the compromise agreement. 9 na taon pa pong mangyayari itong mga bagay nito pero nakabalik na kayo, naka-take over na kayo, nag-ere na kayo. Ang tinatanong namin sa inyo, what is the legal basis for prematurely occupying the facilities of ABS-CBN in the absence of these documents that would ratify the occupation?
Mr. Chair, yung total na pagkabalik po sa ABS-CBN happened in April 15 of 1992.
Ano po?
So, kasi unti-unti po, gradual po yung pagbalik ng facilities ng ABS-CBN. Totoo po yun na nakapag-operate sila. Kaya nga po, even I think doon sa statement ni Attorney Jake Lopez na 1/6 lang po ang pinayagan ng PTB for at the time. Kasi nga po, hindi pa totally nakakalipat ang PTB4 from the Bohol property of ABS-CBN po. Kanya nga po, yun po ang kasagutan doon. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Kanina po, Attorney, kaya nga po matyaga kung sinabi sa inyo, i-stipulate na lamang po natin sapagkat yung timelines po na pinagbasihan ng Korte Suprema lumilitaw na parang mas reliable. Pumayag naman po kayo doon. Sa pagpayag po ninyo yon, September 6, 1986, yung TV station ng Channel 2 at radio stations, na-turn over na po sa inyo. Hindi po 1992, nakagaya ng nakalagay sa paragraph 31 ng affidavit. Nakapag-airing nga kayo, September 14, 1986. Pumayag na po kayo dun eh. Kanina po, nag-stipulate tayo. Ngayon bumabalik na naman po kayo, April 15, 1992. Ipagpalagay po natin, tanggapin ko sandali, April 15, 1992. In 1995 po yung mga sinasabi po ninyong compromise agreement. So, adelantado kayo ng 3 taon bago po nangyari yung pag-uusap. Tama po ba? O, uulitin ko po yung tanong. Ano ang legal basis ninyo ng pagkakakuha nung September o nung sabihin na nating April 1992, gayong darating pa lang at matatapos pa lang ang pag-uusap ninyo May 23, 1995 and June 12 something, 1995. Nauna po kayo sa pangyayari. Tama po.
Mr. Chair, yung tulad po na nabanggit ko, gradual po kasi yung pagbalik sa ABS-CBN.
Gradual na naman po ngayon. Kaya nga po, sinasabi ko na lang, April 1992 na lang. So kahit na gradual, April 1992, naibalik na sa inyo. Okay? Ang tinatanong ko po sa inyo, ano ang legal basis, bakit nauna pa kayo kesa dun sa compromise agreement? Kung totoo man na ito ang ipinalit nyo sa arbitration, bagamat hindi po yan ang nasa record.
Mr. Chair, naantala po kasi yan nung nagkaroon ng kaso ng Gascon.
Ang tinatanong ko po sa inyo, ano po ang legal basis ninyo? Nauna po kasi kayo eh. Kaya September 1986, kaya April 1992, nauna po kayo ng 3 hanggang 9 na taon bago po nangyari ang compromise agreement. Ang linaw naman po ng records eh. Ano po ang legal basis ninyo na ginamit para makuha nyo kagad? Kasi po ang sabi ni Mrs. Aquino, mag-arbitrate kayo. So gumawa kayo ng agreement to arbitrate. Agreement pa lang yun, kasunduan para mag-arbitrate. Ibig ko sabihin, gumawa kayo ng kasunduan ng arbitration, natapos kagad doon. Kaya na nga po nagsabi na tumagal to eh. Sa record po, inabot kayo ng 9 na taon. Pero wala pa po yung record ng arbitration. Ito po yung maliwanag. Ang meron kayo, compromise agreement. Ito po yung record, Attorney. Ngayon po, sa kawalan po ng record o closure, kung paano ang nangyari sa arbitration, sa tingin namin walang closure. Ibig sabihin, walang pagpapatibay hanggang ngayon na talagang ABS-CBN ang may-ari. Sapagkat ang pinapakita nyo ngayon dito ay compromise agreement. Na kung saan, meron kayong claim sa gobyerno, ang gobyerno naman may claim din sa inyo, ang nangyari po offsetting. Kaya nga may sukli po kayo eh. Ang sinisingil niyo sa gobyerno, 97,500,000, kayo naman po ang sinisingil ninyo, mga 67,586,262.55 centavos. May sukli pa po kayo, 29,913. Ang tanong po dito, may hindi pa nga nyo napatunayan eh. Ibig sabihin, what is the basis of this claim against the government of 97 million when the arbitral award is not yet there? Huwag po ninyong sasabihin na nag-arbitrate kayo, pagkatapos nag-compromise kayo. Hindi po tama yung ganun. Wala pa po akong nakita. Ako po nakapag-attend na rin ako ng mga arbitration, mga 2 hanggang 3. Mabusisi po talaga yun. Pero wala pong compromise agreement. Yung talagang itutuloy yun. Merong reception of evidence. Ang sabi po ng Pangulo, Cory Aquino, kailangan transparent. Doon nyo ilalatag lahat ang inyong mga katibayan ng pagmemeari. At kompleto ang record, public and formal. Hindi po natupad yun. Sapagkat ngayon, ang pinakikita nyo sa amin, compromise agreement. Hindi po ganoon ang sinabi ng opisina ng Pangulo. Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, pwede na ho ba akong sumagot?
Go ahead. Teka muna, ano po isasagot nyo doon? Ang tinatanong ko kanina, ano po yung inyong legal basis? Nauna po kayo, kahit nasusundin ko sa April 15, 1992, nauna kayo ng 3 taon.
Honorable Marcoleta,
Susundan ko po yung sa Supreme Court facts, nauna kayo ng 9 na taon. Alin man doon, adelentado po kayo. Ano po yung basis at nauna kayong nakapag-occupy?
Meron, Mr. Chair, meron po kasing isang mga amendments po sa agreement to arbitrate. This is dated January 22, 1992. Maaari ko ho bang i-quote yung specific provision po?
Attorney Don, if I may assist for the guidance of the discussion, ang kailangan niyo pong ipakita, noong pong 1986, sumulat si Attorney Tanyada. Ang sabi niya, ibalik niyo na sa amin, kasi di ba ang unang sulat niya, you can use the facilities of ABS-CBN. After that, there was another letter. Sabi ni Attorney Tanyada, binabawi na po namin. If I may quote, yung letter niya kay President Aquino, Attorney Lorenzo Tanyada, that, Ms. President, to advise the ABS-CBN now desirous of regaining immediate possession of its aforementioned properties. Ito po yung letter ni Tanyada. After that, nag-arbitration kayo ng 1987 signed by Executive Secretary Joker Arroyo and Mr. Eugenio Lopez. Yun mo ang iniingi ni Deputy Speaker Marcoleta. Magmula sa letter ni Tanyada, paano kayo nabigyan kaagad ng possession in 1987?
Mr. Chair, tulad po ng nabanggit ko kanina, gradual po yung pagbalik. And in 1992 po, January 22,
So meaning, there was no letter, no legal basis, it was just parang an arrangement. You just went in and operated ABS-CBN and then you formed an arbitration committee. Tama po ba?
after the announcement na yung demand letter nga po ni Senator Tanyada,
Opo.
binalik, and at the same time, in the same demand letter ay humihingi po
Doon
ng
po sa pagbabalik,
compensation.
wala pong kahit anong kasulatan.
The basis po was the agreement to arbitrate. Kanya nga po na sinasabi ko kanina na gradual po kasi ang pagbalik, Mr.
So, sa
Chair.
madaling salita po, ang sinasabi nyo kay Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, from 86, upon the trigger of the letter of the late Senator Lorenzo Tanyada, the agreement to arbitrate was the basis for the takeover.
Opo.
Okay. Thank you. This is Marcoleta.
Nakalagay po ba dun sa agreement to arbitrate na kapag pinirmahan po ba yun ay makakapag-occupy na kayo at ma-turn over na sa inyo yung ABS-CBN? Nakalagay po ba dun sa agreement to arbitrate?
Dito po sa agreement to arbitrate dated January 6, 1987. Ang pinag-uusapan lamang po doon ay compensation. Kasi nga po naibalik na binabalik na po unti-unti yung possession ng ABS-CBN from the Korea administration po. Pero totally po, although nakapag-operate na po earlier, but the total delivery of return of the possession happened in 1992 po, April 1992.
Attorney, kaya nahihirapan po tayo, hindi responsive po yung sagot ninyo eh. Kanina po, ginaid na po kayo ni Congressman Michael Defensor dahil naghahanap nga po tayo ng legal basis, napapayag niya kayo na sabihin niya na ang basis ay yung agreement to arbitrate, di ba? Ang tinatanong ko po sa inyo, meron po bang nakalagay dyan sa agreement to arbitrate na kapag yan ay pinirmahan, pwede nyo nang i-occupy yung ABS-CBN? Napakasimple po ng tanong, attorney. Huwag na po inyong hanapin, wala dyan, nabasa ko na po yan eh.
Nandito, Mr. Chair, ito po yung for the return of the television and radio stations
Yan,
together
yan po
with the
yung
operating
objective.
equipment.
Kaya kayo mag-arbitrate. Yun po yung pinaka-layunin kung bakit kayo mag-arbitrate. Ang tinatanong ko po sa inyo, pagkapirma po ba niyan, pinayagan na kayong mag-occupy niyan? Ang nangyari po kasi talaga, attorney, kaya nga kanina po, in-stipulate ko na ito, on July 21, 1986, the corresponding order by the PCGG for the turnover of the said frequencies was issued. Ang may kagagawan po nito yung PCGG eh. Ang katunayan, dapat po sana yung PCGG nandito para siyang magpatibay kung paano niya ginawa ito, samantalang ito po ay laban at labag dun sa gusto ng Pangulo na kailangan mag-arbitrate muna kayo. To the credit of the former President, she was so, I think, decided in her desire that ABS-CBN should be able to prove once and for all by competent evidence na talagang kayo ang may-ari. Tama naman po yung proseso na yun eh. Kaya po hinahanapan namin kayo ng record ng proceedings. Huwag niyo po sasabihin sa amin na yung compromise agreement, yun po yung arbitral award. Hindi po ganun yun. Abogado rin po kayo. Magkakaroon po kayo ng pagkakamali. Dalawang bagay po. Hindi niyo sinunod ang kagustuhan ng Pangulo. Kaya nga kayo pinagbigyan ng dahil dun eh. Pagkatapos nauwi kayo sa compromise agreement, wala namang sinasabi doon na katibayan na napatunayan ninyo na kayo ang may-ari. Ang pinag-uusapan lang doon, solian ng claim ng bawat isa. Yun po yung nakalagay sa record, Mr. Chair. Meron po ba kayong gusto isagot?
Kung records po or the proceedings, nagkaroon po ng paglilitis.
Mr. Chair, ulit-ulit po tayo rito eh. Tama nga po siguro meron kayong proceedings. Ang tinatanong po namin dito, yung record, ayaw po ba nyo na matulungan namin kayo, makilatis natin, malaman natin na talagang dumaan sa talagang proseso na yun ang ginusto ng presidente ng panahon na yon. Bakit palagi tayong bumabalik sa issue na nagkaroon kayo ng pag-proceedings? Siguro nga po, pero yung record ng proceedings, ang kailangan namin makita. Ang sabi ninyo, meron kayo. So para matapos tayo, Mr. Chair, gusto po ng representasyon ito na kinakailangan isubmit po ninyo yung kompletong proceedings sapagkat ito po ang naayon dun sa directive ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas noong panahon na yun.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized, please?
Yes, Mr. Katigbak.
Mr. Chair, if you allow me, I would just like to read very, very quickly part of the Supreme Court decision with regards to the Gascon case. And I'll quote, "The record discloses the following facts. The Lopez family is the owner of 2 television stations, namely Channel 2 and 4, which they have operated through the ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation. On April 17, 1986, the Lopez family, through counsel ex-Senator Lorenzo Tañada, requested President Aquino to order the return to the Lopez family of TV stations 2 and 4. On June 13, 1986, the Lopez family made a written request to the PCGG for the return of TV station Channel 2. On June 18, 1986, the PCGG approved the return of TV station Channel 2 to the Lopez family. The return was made on October 18, 1986. With regard to the question po of whether we have the document evidencing this, at this time we still don't have, to my knowledge, the actual PCGG ruling, but we will exercise our best effort to find this document. I understand the point being made by DS Marcoleta. If I could continue lang po, Mr. Chair, just very quickly. Thereafter, the Lopez family requested for the return of TV station Channel 4. Acting upon the request, Executive Secretary, by authority of the President, entered into, with the ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation, an agreement to arbitrate. So sa pagkaintindi ko po sa Supreme Court description, yung agreement to arbitrate was for the return of the remaining properties of ABS-CBN, but by virtue of the PCGG order, Channel 2 had already been returned effective October 18, 1986 po.
Thank you, Mr. Katigbak. And in relation to that, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, if I may just add, kung titingnan niyo po yung forma ng inyong mga abogado from day one, yung kay Atty. Tanyada, yung claim niya na yun is a claim that you never lost ownership. Kaya ang sinasabi niya, eto ginamit ninyo, balik nyo na sa amin. Eto ginamit ninyo, balik nyo na sa amin. So, wala po ang burden sa inyo para sabihin na amin yan. Di ba? Ang gobyerno dapat magsabi. Pero dapat po, sagutin nyo si Deputy Speaker Marcoleta. Kasi yun po tinitingnan niya, paano mapunta sa inyo? No? I think the correct reply to that is, we never lost ownership in the first place. That is why there was no burden of proof on our behalf to show ownership. Kaya po ang pinasok agad was an arbitration process. Ano bang claim nyo? Anong claim niya? Which is, pagka po pinag-aralan niyo po yung inyong kasulatan, nag-usapan na kayo sino may utang, sino magbabayad. Kinilanan na kayo kaagad by virtue of that agreement. Yun po, Mr. Katigbak, Atty. Don, yun po tingin ko yung angulo doon sa inyong statement. I now relinquish and give back the presiding duties to our chairman.
Salamat, Vice Chairman Mike Defensor. Sa kalaman po ng lahat, kasama po natin ngayong araw na ito ang PCGG. At bago ko po i-recognize ang PCGG na kinakatawan po ni Commissioner John Agbayani, ito po ay mga maaasahan natin. At si Director Stephen Tanchuling, the COMSEC is directed to execute the oath of our distinguished guest before this body.
Ikaw na lang. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Maraming salamat po, Comsec. PCGG, can you, pwede po bang pakilinaw po tungkol sa mga usapin na kanina po ay nabanggit na ni Congressman Marcoleta, Commissioner John Agbayani, pwede niyo po ba kami bigyan ng linaw?
Magandang gabi po, Chairman and Your Honors. Base po sa PCGG records, nais ko pong ilahad yung sinasabi nilang staggered basis in turning over the possession and ownership of ABS-CBN to the Lopezes by the government. This is based on, briefly po, itong mga following events. Unang-una po, yung 1986 sequestration po ng Canlaon Broadcasting System.
Mr. Chair, sino po ba nagtanong sa PCGG representative? Wala pa po akong tinatanong sa kanya.
Kanina po, paalala lang po, Deputy Speaker Marcoleta, kanina po ay hinahanap nyo ang paglilinaw ng PCGG tungkol po sa usaping ito, pabayaan po natin na makapagsalita po ang PCGG.
Wala po ako sinabi na hinahanap ko yung PCGG. Binanggit ko lamang po sa
Hearing
record.
suspended.
Pwede po bang malaman ang pangalan po ng representative ng PCGG?
Hearing resumed. Deputy Speaker Marcoleta.
Mr. Chair, pwede po bang malaman ang pangalan ng representative ng PCGG?
PCGG.
Si Commissioner John A. Agbayani po. Your Honor.
Ito po sa record na naitala ng aming committee ay nakalagay po yung ganito. On July 17, 1986, PCGG sent a letter to the Board of Administrators directing the turnover of TV Channel 2 frequency and radio frequencies, DWOK, etc., both in Metro Manila. Ito po ba'y kinukonfirm ninyo?
Opo. Opo, Your Honor.
21, 1986, the corresponding order by the PCGG for the turnover of the said frequencies was issued. You confirm this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Bakit po ganun na nangyari? Napakabilis yata. Wala po ba kayong kinailangan na proseso o halimbawa magpangapagpapatunay at ang nangyari rito, sinulatan nyo kagad ang Board of Administrators at CLA inutusan na ninyo na i-turn over ang Channel 2. Samantalang dun sa Letter of Instruction number 11, ginawa po yun ng dating Pangulong Cory Aquino in order to determine the true ownership of these facilities. Bakit po ang nangyari, wala pa namang determination, ang PCGG gumawa na kayo ng hakbang para i-turn over ang ABS-CBN facilities sa kanila?
Mr. Chairman, Your Honor, base po sa record ng PCGG, kasi matagal na po nangyari po ito, before this decision was arrived at, there was a deliberation by the PCGG and bank to deliver a temporary use and possession of the radio frequencies of DWOK 630, DWW 101, and the TV Channel 2 frequency. Ngunit, temporary use and possession lang po ito. That is the basis of their early occupation of ABS-CBN. Kung titingnan po ninyo ang order na ito of 17 July 1986, it is consistent with the desire of President Cory Aquino. Nakalagay po rito that it shall be understood that the use of the ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation of the above frequencies shall be subject to whatever may be the final adjudication by appropriate authority on the ownership of the above-mentioned property. Kaya consistent po ang tayo ni President Cory Aquino na although the temporary use and possession of these facilities were granted to ABS-CBN, but it is subject to determination finally of the by proper authorities on the ownership of this property.
Salamat po. Mr. Chair, malinaw po yung binanggit ng representative ng PCGG. Ang pagkaka-turnover sa kanila ay temporary lamang and it will be subject to the appreciation of evidence of ownership that will be submitted by ABS-CBN. And I think that particular response is supported by Executive Order number 11, which was dated April 8, 1986, wherein the Board of Administrators were directed to determine the accurate information to the people's pending investigation by the Commission and until the question of true ownership is determined. Tama po yung kanilang sagot. Kaya po kanina, ang tinatanong ko kay Attorney Rendon, at ngayon, lumilitaw pala na ang pagkakakuha nila was made subject to that condition na kinakailangang magpatibay pa rin kayo ng ownership. Kaya tama po yung sinabi ni former President Corazon Aquino. Dito nyo lamang mapatutunayan, dito sa transparent na pagbibigay sa inyo ng pagkakataong mapatibayan ninyo ang inyong ownership, lahat ng proof ng ownership ay ipakita ninyo, torrents, titles, at ibang mga katibayan ng pagmimayari ng inyong mga facilities sa pamamagitan ng arbitration. Kaya nga kanina pa po tayo paikot-ikot dito, ang hinahanap namin ay yung record ng proceedings hanggang makita natin doon na ipakita nyo ng buong buo ng walang pag-aalinlangan na talagang kayo talaga ang may-ari ng ABS-CBN. Ito po yung hinahanap naming record of proceedings, attorney. Hindi po yung nagkaroon kayo ng compromise agreement ng dahil lamang sa offsetting ng mga halaga ng pag-claim ng bawat isa sa panig ng gobyerno at ang panig ng ABS-CBN. Medyo walang closure. Parang kulang po doon eh. Yung pinaka-mahigpit, yung pinaka-importanting yugto na kung saan makita natin na may closure talaga sa pamamagitan ng isang arbitration, yun po ang hindi nyo maipakita ngayon. Walang record. Mr. Chair, until and unless ABS-CBN was able to submit the complete records of proceedings, wala pong closure ito. Sapagkat the best evidence, attorney, is the records of proceedings. Kahit na po, halimbawa, tanungin kayo nung mga kasama namin dito, mentioning about the doctrine of qualified political agency. Hindi po mangingibabaw yun eh. Ang importante pa rin is the best evidence, yung records ng arbitration proceedings. Kahit na po gamitin nyo yung doctrine of primary jurisdiction, the best evidence will prevail, yung record ng proceedings. Kahit gamitin ninyo yung presumption of regularity, mas gusto pa namin makita yung object evidence. That is the best evidence. Kahit gamitin pa ninyo yung doctrine of operative fact, hindi po mangingibabaw yun. Do sa best evidence, ito po yung record ng proceedings. Salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat po, Congressman Deputy Speaker Marcoleta. Ang susunod po na magtatanong ay si Congresswoman Josephine Ramirez Sato, na binigyan ni Congresswoman Aragones ng kanyang oras. At sa kalaman po ni Congresswoman Josephine Sato, meron pa pong available kayo na 8 minuto na maaaring magamit. Congresswoman Sato, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can somebody unmute me because I cannot unmute myself here? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I proceed with my interpellation, may I just make a manifestation? Because during our hearing last June 11, 2020, I was looking for the Philippine Securities representative to answer some questions. And but I think they had some problems with their connection. So they sent me a letter instead, answering, or in that letter, they answered some of my questions. And I would just want to request the committee to please allow me to read this letter into the record, or because the Committee on Legislative Franchise be included in the record and made part of my interpellation last June 11, 2020. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Opo, naririnig po namin kayo, Congresswoman Sato.
Can the committee or the chairman rule that said letter will form part of my interpellation last June 11, 2020?
Opo, Congresswoman Sato, ang inyo pong sulat ay kukunin po ng ating committee secretary at magiging kasama po nitong hearing natin na ito.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This representation believes that the proofs of the matter, which we are discussing today, or as to whether or not the return to the ABS-CBN of the properties and facilities which were sequestered and taken over, rests on the nature of sequestration. I would like to direct my questions to DOJ first and then later to the PCGG. Is there a representative from the DOJ? Mr. Chairman, is there a representative?
EC, you're now recognized.
Okay. I would like to read to you a letter of instruction dated September 22, 1972. This is LOI number 1, signed by the former President Ferdinand E. Marcos and addressed to the Secretary of the Department of National Defense. I would like to read this because I believe that this is the basis for the taking over of the facilities and properties of the ABS-CBN. Part of this NOI states that to prevent the use of privately owned newspapers, magazines, radio and television facilities, and all other media of communication for propaganda purposes against the government and its duly constituted authorities. Thus, the President at the time ordered the Secretary of the Department of National Defense to take over and control or cause the taking over and control of all newspapers, magazines, radio and television facilities, and all other media communications wherever they are for the duration of the present national emergency or until otherwise ordered by me or by my duly designated representative. Mr. Assistant Secretary, or I don't know the representative of the DOJ, but Mr. Representative of the DOJ, will you agree with me that this LOI only ordered the taking over and control of the facility for a temporary or for a specific duration of time, that is during the presence of national emergency? Is that correct?
DOJ?
Good evening, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I hear the question again? I wasn't able to get it in its entirety. I apologize for that.
Did you hear the portion of the LOI which I read?
I did it, Your Honor. May I request?
Yes,
if you may indulge me, Your Honor.
The LOI ordered the Secretary of the Department of National Defense to take over and control or cause the taking over and control of all newspapers, magazines, radio, and television facilities, and all media communications wherever they are for the duration of the present national emergency and until otherwise ordered by me or by my duly designated representative. My question is, would you agree with me that the taking over and control of all these media facilities is temporary and for a duration stated herein during the national emergency? Is that correct?
Your Honor, assuming that that particular LOI is a valid LOI, so the language of that LOI would suggest that the takeover would only be temporary for the duration of the emergency.
Okay.
You're correct, Your Honor.
Okay. And it is very clear that it is only to take over and control or cause the taking over and control. It only specifically states taking over and control of these facilities. It does not refer to the transfer of ownership of these facilities. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor. The takeover is limited only to possession and operation and does not include ownership.
So that when the government at the time, through the Secretary of National Defense, took over and controlled the facilities of ABS-CBN, the ownership of all these properties and facilities remained with the ABS-CBN.
That would be a correct interpretation, Your Honor.
So that you would also agree with me with the definition of sequestration that has been initiated in some jurisprudence, in some cases, that sequestration is the act of removing, separating, or seizing anything from the possession of its owner under the process of law.
That is a correct definition, Your Honor.
Okay. And this is in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution that you cannot deprive a person of his property without due process of law. That is the reason why in the definition of sequestration, it is only seizing the possession, but that should comply with the provisions or the processes of law. Now,
that's correct.
I will get back to you, sir, after I have asked practically the same questions from the PCGG. Mr. Commissioner of the PCGG, may I ask you a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Madam Congresswoman.
Yeah, you just heard the statement made by the officer or official of the Department of Justice. Will you agree with us that the taking over and control of the ABS-CBN during the martial law was only the taking over of possession and not the vesting of ownership to the government or to any other agency, and it was only for a specific duration?
I agree. I agree, Your Honor.
So that even if the government took over the facilities and control of the properties and facilities of the ABS-CBN, it is very clear and it is without any iota of doubt that the ownership is still vested in the owners of ABS-CBN. Is that correct?
You're correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so that when the specific duration as specified in the LOI number 1, that it was only valid during the presence of national emergency or otherwise ordered by the president or by his duly represented by his duly designated representative. When that time comes, it is the responsibility of the government to turn it over to the rightful owner. Is that correct?
You're correct, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. I would also want to go back to the processes. Can you give us a walkthrough of the processes that was done leading to the compromise agreement, which was entered into by the government of the Philippines through the executive secretary at that time, Chufisto Lingona, and representative of ABS-CBN. Would you know the process that was followed before they arrived at and signed the compromise agreement?
I think, Your Honor, that question should be addressed by ABS-CBN because PCGG was not a party to that compromise agreement.
No, you're not. I'm not asking you anything about the compromise agreement. Because earlier you said that you referred to the agreement to arbitrate, and you were referring to the records available to you in your office. So may I reform my question? Do you have records in your office that would show the process that was followed in this particular case before culminating in the compromise agreement dated April 28, 1995?
Your Honor, PCGG was not a party to that compromise agreement of ABS-CBN and the government. We were just participants, or we are just privy to properties which were subject of sequestration. Unfortunately, in the Ministry Order number 3, which was used as basis to sequester and occupy ABS-CBN, the subject of sequestration there was not ABS-CBN. The sequestration was addressed on the Canlaon Broadcasting System entities, namely RPN, BBC, IBC, which were then owned by Roberto S. Benedicto, the crony of the late Ferdinand E. Marcos.
Okay, I know for a fact that you are not a party or you're not privy to the compromise agreement. I was just interested if you know the process or processes which were followed that led to the compromise agreement. But I believe that because I wanted to know if you have records to show the processes that led to the compromise agreement.
We do not have in PCGG, Your Honor.
All right, but okay. So in all other cases, you just mentioned that the sequestration, there were other properties or other television or other stations which were sequestered. You're referring to Canlaon or other, you just mentioned other stations. Would you say that the nature of the sequestration was also temporary in nature?
Yes, Your Honor. It's temporary.
So that the very nature of the sequestration is that it is temporary and that ownership is not automatically vested in the government or transferred to the government.
As described briefly by the Supreme Court, sequestration is akin to a provisional remedy of attachment. And it will terminate at the moment there is a final adjudication as to the ownership of the property subject of sequestration. In this case, Your Honor, sequestration of properties, meron pong kaakibat po yan na main case na recovery. So in the meantime that the main case of recovery is still pending, the sequestration is there. But the moment the Sandigan Bayan decides who the owner really of this property sequestered, then the sequestration is lifted.
Right. Okay, that's very clear. So that this compromise agreement, which was entered into by the government and the ABS-CBN, which was recognized and confirmed by the Board of Arbitration, and which was later on passed upon by the Regional Trial Court, Branch 65 of Makati City on June 23, 1995. And I quote, the court finds that the compromise agreement is not contrary to law, morals, public order, good customs, public policy, and thus the Honorable Court approved the said compromise agreement. When this compromise agreement was entered into, and as you said, you're not a privy to this, I'm just asking you a hypothetical question. When this has been entered into in accordance with the processes provided by law and recognized by the Regional Trial Court, in your experience in the PCGG, do you respect this compromise agreement?
In various cases as decided by the Supreme Court, Your Honor, once a compromise agreement is entered into by the parties and it is not vitiated by fraud, consent, or any other vices that will invalidate the compromise agreement, that is binding upon the parties. It is the law between the parties. It is res adjudicata between the parties. And if there is a judgment rendered approving the compromise agreement, then it can be enforced and executed.
Thank you very much, because that is the very case attending, or the fact attending in this case of ABS-CBN, and no less than the Supreme Court in the Gascon versus Arroyo stated that because they recognize that the agreement to arbitrate is valid, and this compromise agreement was a result of the processes of arbitration. And may I quote what the Supreme Court said, that the agreement to arbitrate is valid. It is enforceable and irrevocable, save upon such grounds as exists at law for the revocation of any contract. As you said, this is a valid and binding contract between the Republic of the Philippines and the ABS-CBN. So it is very clear that never in the period of sequestration did ABS-CBN lose their ownership of these facilities and properties that were previously sequestrated.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. ABS-CBN did not lose ownership because it was not the subject of sequestration. It was not sequestered.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer. May I go back to the Undersecretary of the Department of Justice? Mr. Undersecretary?
Hello again, Your Honor.
Yes. This compromise agreement that we are talking about entered into between Executive Secretary Jofisto Gingona in his official capacity and representing the government and the ABS-CBN was recognized or was declared as binding and valid by the Regional Trial Court of Makati on June 23, 1995. And this was also recognized by the National Telecommunications Commission in its order approving the application of ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation for a certificate of public convenience. So this has been passed upon and ruled upon by agencies of government, by the court, that this is valid and binding. And this has been entered into in 1995. I would like to ask the question, Mr. Undersecretary. Can anybody or can the government still impugn, or anybody for that matter, can impugn the validity of this compromise agreement?
Your Honor, without going into the facts, the department is not privy to the facts that took place in this case, nor to the specific facts, nor to the specific procedural facts. We will just reply to your question from a legal perspective. And if the decision is not appealed by any of the parties, it becomes final and executory. And if that's the case, it cannot be questioned. It cannot be questioned again later on.
Yes, that's the same answer as the PCGG. Because as of this given date, there has been no question, no appeal on this decision of the Regional Trial Court on the validity of this compromise agreement, which was entered into between the government and the ABS-CBN. So thank you very much for that answer.
You're welcome.
For my last question, may I direct my question to the representative of the NTC?
NTC, you're recognized.
May I have your name, sir?
Attorney Cordoba po, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman and Congresswoman Santo.
Okay.
Don't.
Chairman, Commissioner Cordoba,
Apo.
would you have any knowledge or of this order dated June 11, 2008, issued by your agency in favor of or granting the application of ABS-CBN Broadcasting Corporation for a certificate of public convenience to install, operate, and maintain DWWXT station, DZMM, and DWRB radio station in Metro Manila, which was filed on February 3, 1987. Are you aware of this order?
I am not personally aware, Your Honor, because I think that was issued before the time that I was there in the NTC. But we can check from the records, Your Honor, to verify and to confirm if those are if that order is genuine order, Your Honors.
Okay. I would want to request you, and Mr. Chairman, I would just want to for the committee to order or direct the National Telecommunications Commission to furnish the committee and this representation a certified true copy of the order of NTC dated June 11, 2008.
We will do that, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Because in this order, it was stated that the Office of the Solicitor General, the PTV4, and the Kapitanan ng mga Broadcasters ng Pilipinas opposed the application of ABS-CBN because on the ground that the facilities and the frequency of ABS-CBN and those stations referred to are subject of sequestration. And it is in that order that the MTC specifically stated that they are granting the application because, number one, there is no pending case or proceeding before any agency, court, or tribunal which puts in issue the ownership of the petitioner of the equipment and facilities forming part of Channel 2, DWRR, and DZMM. The NTC likewise stated that all claims and controversies which ABS-CBN and the Republic of the Philippines had against each other relating to the certain TV and radio stations were submitted by both parties to arbitration in 1987 and have already been settled with finality. Third, on April 28, 1995, ABS-CBN and the Republic of the Philippines entered into a compromise agreement in the arbitration case which contained a full and final settlement of all claims, including the use and ownership of the TV stations owned by ABS-CBN. Fourth, the compromise agreement was signed by the Executive Secretary, Jofisto Gingona, for the Republic of the Philippines and the Vice Chairman of ABS-CBN, Mr. Augusto Almeda Lopez, assisted by then Solicitor General Raul Poco, Assistant Solicitor General Romeo de la Cruz, and Solicitor Carl Miranda. And sixth, the Board of Arbitrators, composed of retired Justice Amorfina Melesio Herrera, nominee of the parties, Cesar Garcia, nominee of the Republic of the Philippines, and Andres Bautista, nominee of ABS-CBN, approved the compromise agreement in a decision dated May 23, 1995. And lastly, the Regional Trial Court of Makati, Branch 65, through Judge Salvador Abad Santos, likewise approved the compromise agreement. And this case was a case number 94-1871 in a judgment dated June 23, 1995. This was contained in that order. That is the reason why I would want you to give or deliver to the committee a certified true copy of this order of your agency.
May I respond, Your Honors?
Go ahead.
We will submit the required certified true copy of the said order before the next hearing, Your Honors. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, it is very clear that the taking over and control and sequestration of facilities and properties of ABS-CBN only refers to the possession and use of these properties and facilities. The ownership remains and still remains with the ABS-CBN. And since it was only for a temporary period during the time of national emergency, it is incumbent, it is the moral obligation of the government to give it back to ABS-CBN, who remains the registered owner and the legal owner of these facilities and property. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, my dear colleague.
Maraming salamat po, Congresswoman Josephine Sato. At bago ko po kilalanin ang ating muling magtatanong na si Vice Chairman Mike Defensor, the Chairman recognize Congressman Ed Selagman para po sa isang maikling manifestation.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Congressman Lagman.
I have no more manifestation to make because the previous proceedings already clarified the issue I wanted to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Maraming salamat po, Congressman Ed Selagman. Ngayon naman po ang huling mag-i-interpellate ngayong gabing ito na si Congressman Vice Chairman Mike Defensor ay bibigyan po natin ng karagdagang 5 minuto. Iyan pong 5 minuto na yan ay nilagpas po sa oras ni Congresswoman Josephine Sato. May 10 minuto ka, Congressman Mike Defensor, Vice Chairman, you're now recognized. You have the floor.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman. Una po sa lahat, nais namin magpasalamat sa mga kasama natin from ABS-CBN. Alas 9 na po. Alam kong hindi pa rin po kayo kumakain. Katulad din po namin na nandito. Of course, my colleagues here in the plenary at doon pong mga nasa Zoom. Kasi po pinag-uusapan natin kasaysayan. Gusto ko lang po, para rin sa kalaman ng ating mga kababayan, ito pong pagkakaupo ni Pangulong Marcos at pagdikta ng martial law. Pagpaumanin niyo din kasi noong 1969, ang pamilyang Lopez sumuporta sa pagkapangulo ni Presidente Marcos. Di po ba tama? Mr. Carlo Katigbak may want to answer that.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So, Fernando Lopez was the Vice President of Mr. Marcos at the time. Siya po ang naging Vice Presidente. Kaya ako po nabanggit yun, may relasyon din po doon sa ating huling topic, yung politika. Pero dahil nauna po yung kasaysayan ng ABS-CBN, gusto ko lang pong ilinaw na kung masasabi natin at ito yung sentimento ng pamilyang Lopez na yung nangyari ng panahon ng martial law, masasabi rin po natin na kayo po ay may kaunting kontribusyon sa naging problema ng martial law dahil kayo rin naman po ang sumuporta kay Pangulong Marcos nung siya po ay tumakbong presidente, di po ba?
ABS-CBN.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure I can answer that correctly. I think the family might have supported Mr. Marcos, but I don't think they have had anything to do with the decision to declare martial law.
That's correct. And that's correct. And I agree with you. You were really, no, what I'm saying is, if the family felt aggrieved during the time of martial rule, which you were, you were politically and financially decimated by the Marcos government. We were very young at that time, but you have to understand that it was also the Lopez family who supported the presidency of Ferdinand Marcos. Isn't that correct, Mr. Katigbak?
I cannot answer that personally, but from what I understand, yes, they supported Mr. Marcos at the time.
Kaya ko po nabanggit yun, Mr. Katigbak, kasi nga sa pagdaan ng kasaysayan at talaga namang malakas ang ABS-CBN, malakas ang inyong impluensya kung sino magiging Pangulo at leader ng bansa, yan po yung mga nagiging implikasyon at nagiging problema sa ating sitwasyon na doon panahon na yun, nung nakita ni Mr. Marcos na talagang malakas kayo at maaring nilalabanan nyo na siya, biglang nagdeklara ng martial law. At dito nga po tayo napunta sa problema natin sa ngayon. Problema noon, bata pa po tayo noon, at yung sitwasyon natin sa ngayon. Pangalawa po, alam nyo, naguguluhan lang ako sa isyong to kasi ibinalik sa inyo yung ABS-CBN From a layman's point of view po, si ang gobyerno pang nagkautang sa inyo ng 95 million. Parang naguguluhan po ako dun sa naging proseso na doon nga sa pagkawala, kinuha na sa inyo ng gobyerno, pag upo ng Pangulong Cory, ibinalik sa inyo, sila pa may utang. Bakit po ba nagkaganon? Would anyone care to answer or
ABS-CBN?
Yun po yung paksa na pinag-usapan, kaya nga po nagkaroon ng arbitration. Dahil po yung ABS-CBN ay naniningil po lamang ng rental sa paggamit ng facilities.
Tama po. Alam niyo po ang mga karakter na bumubuo sa EDSA Revolution, ang mga tao at yung pong pagkakabalik ng mga ABS-CBN ay mga taong hindi matatawaran yung kanilang reputasyon, yung kanilang pagka-Pilipino. Sa banda ng ABS-CBN, no less than Senator Lorenzo Tañada. Sa banda naman po ng ating gobyerno, the Honorable Joker Arroyo. At sa katotohanan naman po, magkakasama rin po sila noong panahon ng revolusyon. Pero sila din po nagkakasama. May isa lang pong pagkakamali dito, Attorney Redon, and to all the ABS-CBN. There was never a discussion or an audit on finance. There was never a discussion or audit of the equipment. Ang nangyari ho, to my mind, this was a arbitration agreement na wala pong, hindi po tiningnan yung aspeto ng mga ekwipo at yung mga iba pa hong gamit. Tama po ba?
Mr. Chair, sa arbitration proceedings po, we presented representatives from Asian Appraisal. Meron po silang, I think 3 po ang testigo nila kasi inappraise po yung mga equipment and property, kung magkano po ang halaga nun to determine the just compensation for the use of the equipment during the Cory administration until po fully na turn over yung possession na yon sa ABS-CBN.
Tama po, Attorney. Nagkaroon kayo ng appraisal on the just rate of rental. Nagkaroon kayo ng appraisal doon sa equipment which will be turned over. Pero ang hindi niyo po in-appraise, noong 1972, ano ba ang equipment ni ABS-CBN? At nung ibinabalik na ng gobyerno sa Lopez family, ano ba yung mga equipment na yun? Kasi kung ako po yung, kung titingnan po yung nangyari, di ba? Sinabi, binigay mo sa inyo yung bahay, luma, kinuha niya, luma ang furniture. Nag-take over po ang administrasyon ni Presidente Marcos. Inayos niya yung bahay, nilagyan niya ng mga upuan, nilagyan niya ng ano. Bigla na lang po nag-turn over, nag-take over kayo. Hindi nakita kung ano yung, hindi nagkaroon ng audit, kung ano yung dati at ano yung ibinalik sa inyo. Hindi ko nakikita sa agreement kung ano yung utang nung kinuha ninyo at nung ibinalik sa inyo. For example, from what I understand, ang sinasabi ng hunang gobyerno is, ng Lopez family, for the government to take over so that the loans will be paid for by the government. There's an assertion to that effect. Eventually, government paid for that. Ano ba yung utang na yun? Hindi ko naintindihan. If you look at the agreement, ang inyo lang po pinag-usapan, yung rental ng RPN 9 at ABS. So yun lang po yung gusto ko lang sabihin na andyan po yung arbitration agreement but wala pong klaro sa aking from the side of finance, ano ba yung dati at ano yung ibinalik ng gobyerno sa ABS-CBN Lopez family.
Tulad po ng sinabi ko po, nagkaroon po ng appraisal. Kasi nga po, kung babasihan po natin from 1972, definitely po, may mga nawala na rin pong mga facilities. From 1972 to 1986, matagal po yun. So nung ibinalik na po, ay kung ano lamang po yung, meron po kasing, I think there was an inventory na we even also presented witnesses ng mga dating empleyado ng ABS-CBN. Sila po ang nagpatunay na nung tinake over po yan since martial law or even until nung martial law po, ay yun po yung mga existing na mga ekwipo ng ABS-CBN.
Okay po, Mr. Chairman. Anyway, let's not argue on that. I would just ask the PCGG because from a letter of Commissioner Mildred Aguilar-Flyder of the PCGG, and if I may just cite yung pong sinabi niya, although our orders of July 17 and 21, 1986 limited the transfer of said assets, which are the broadcast equipment, to only the use and physical possession thereof without prejudice to the final adjudication of ownership and title thereto. The undersigned is constrained to repeat some concerns. This was the opposition of Commissioner Mildred Flyder to the PCGG on the transfer of custody and control of sequestered assets. Anyway, let's not belabor the point. Andiyan na naman po yan. I just wanted to raise. And if I may ask PCGG to submit that letter to the committee. Ang huling tanong ko po, Mr. Chairman, at siguro naman ho, sa history, I do not know when this will be taken up. Noong 2010, 2014 ho, nagsubmit na kayo ng renewal. Ano po nangyari? Kasi ngayon ho, under COVID, under pressure, 10 months, pinipilit nating aprubahan tong, o pag-usapan tong prangkisa. You can imagine, noong pong 1986-87, ibinalik ng Pangulong Aquino sa inyo ang prangkisa. In 2014-2016, the President is the son of former President Cory Aquino. I would think there is at some point some congruence in terms of principles, in terms of perception, no, or political camp, if you may, yung meron po kayong pagkakaisa sa isip at kampo pampolitika ng Pangulong Noynoy Aquino. Ano pong nangyari 2014 at hindi napursu ang inyong prangkisa?
I can only answer factually, Mr. Chair, that there was no hearings scheduled for the franchise in I think it was the 16th Congress.
Kahit isa pong pandinig sa prangkisa ng 2014?
Sorry po, there was one hearing. There was only one hearing scheduled po.
Ito po yung bill na final ni Congressman Agabao, if I'm not mistaken. Opo. So matapos po ng isang hearing, ano po nangyari?
It was not acted on by the committee, Mr. Chair.
Kasi alam niyo po, Mr. Katigbak, ito pong sitwasyon namin, and I think I can speak for some who are asking questions. Alam niyo dito sa social media, araw-araw tumitira yung mga pro-ABS, anti-ABS. Kami po yung napagitna sa isang sitwasyon na 10 buwan pinipilit namin i-hearing to. Ngayon ho, ilang COVID nga tayo, suspended ang hearings, ang session, nandito ho kami. Bakit po hindi nyo kayo nagpuso ng 2014? Bakit hindi po nagsalita mga taga-ABS-CBN ang mga artista na nagsasalita ngayon noong 2014 to 2016 na panahon naman po ng Pangulong Noynoy Aquino?
Hindi ko po masasagot yung sa 2014 po. But sa ngayon po nagsasalita yung mga artista at empleyado kasi tinanggalan po kami sa ere. I think more than any other reason, that's why people started speaking out po, Mr. Chair.
Klaro ko lang po, no? Nagkaroon ng cease and desist, kayo po ang nagsara dahil kung lalabanan niyo po yun sana, pwede naman. Pero at any rate, noong pong 2014-2016, ang luwag ho ng panahon natin eh. Noong panahon ni Noynoy Aquino, from 2014 to date, 6 years. At pinapayagan po yan na pwede kayong mag-apply ng mas maaga at mag-renew ng mas maaga ng inyong prangkisa, ng inyong lisensya at kung anong paman po na pinanghahawakan. So, meron po ba makakasagot sa atin sa ABS-CBN kung ano nangyari? Because ito, for the record, malalaman na ho ng committee later on, years from now, mababasa po ito ng mga tao at mapapaliwanag yun ng malinaw kung bakit hindi kayo nag-renew. Galit po ba si Presidente Noynoy Aquino sa inyo ng mga panahon na yon?
Hindi ko po masasagot yung aksyon ng Kongreso nung panahon na yon. Sa pagkakaalam ko po, nag-file po kami ng renewal in the previous 2 Congresses. And I understand there was only one hearing that was called with regards to our franchise application.
Bakit naman po nung kami nga po ang 10 buwan pa lang, bigla naman kaming tinira ng kung saan-saan na sinisisi ang Kongreso. I think Congressman Villago, did you file that time, before 2016?
Kung Defensor, as far as I know, 16th Congress pa lang, final na ito. Nagkaroon sila ng isang hearing, after that, nawala na. So I
17th or 16th?
16th Congress. So I filed itong 17th Congress. Hindi din nadinig. And now 18th Congress. Ngayon pa lang natin nag-uumpisa ang discussion tungkol sa franchise of ABS-CBN.
O sa makautuwid po, nung 16th Congress, hindi po si Congressman Chicoy Alvarez. 17th Congress, hindi pa si Congressman Chicoy Alvarez. Nung second half. Di ba ho? Asa na po? Wala po naging hearing.
Opo, 17th Congress is under the chairman of Chicoy Alvarez. Wala pong hearing na naganap. And then ngayong 18th Congress, last March 10 lang kami nagkaroon ng hearing with the Speaker Cayetano po.
Hinintay ka lang ng ABS-CBN, Congressman Mike Defensor.
Yun lang mabigat doon. So, from that time to this time, because the 2014 to 2016 years were the very critical. Ito po para sa akin ang critical. Dahil kung ang Pangulong Noynoy Aquino, na anak ng dating Pangulong Pangulong Aquino, Cory Aquino, na ibinalik sa inyo, bakit hindi naman niya ibabalik ang inyong renewal?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I cannot answer for the President. What I can say is that ABS filed our franchise renewal application with the committee po.
Yung iba po bang opisyal na nandun sa 2014, would you like to reply to that?
Mr. Chair, if I may add, no. I think at that time, nung hindi na siya gumalaw, we felt that we had time pa naman, so we didn't pursue it at that point when it was not moving anymore. So I think that's why it was refiled again in the 17th Congress. So yun yung nangyari po.
The 16th Congress was the time of President Noynoy Aquino. And you were thinking the 17th Congress and the 18th Congress.
Yes.
That could be pursued. So again, was there any problem with President Noynoy Aquino or any of the officials of President Noynoy Aquino? Because Chris Aquino was there in 2014 with ABS-CBN. Is that not correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yun naman po. Talent nyo si Chris Aquino. Ang Presidente Noynoy Aquino, anak ng President Cory Aquino. Ako po yung nagtataka, ba't hindi nyo na rin yun ang panahon na yun?
Ang tanong po ni Congressman Mike Defensor ay nagkatampuhan po ba kayo nung panahon na yan?
Mr. Chair, I think yung negosyo ho namin sa ABS, I think it's quite normal ho na every administration nagkakatampuhan naman at some point kung may mga hindi magandang lumalabas. But I cannot cite any specific issue at that point na with the President Aquino at that point, na hindi natuloy dahil doon.
Nakausap niyo po ba si President Aquino, Mr. Lopez, Mr. Katigbak?
Tungkol sa franchise po, hindi po namin pinag-usapan yun.
Pag-uusap lang po na itong approval, hindi niyo na pag-usapan?
Hindi po.
Wala po kayong idinulog kay Pangulong Noynoy tungkol dito sa
prangkisa ng 2014 to 2016?
Personally po, hindi ko kinausap si Presidente tungkol sa prangkisa ng ABS po.
Mr. Lopez, would you have any
No, Mr.
discussion?
Chair, not aware at that point.
Chris Aquino po, hindi niyo ko kinausap na tumulong para inunin niyo yung prangkisa.
Ako, hindi rin po.
Kayo po, Mr. Lopez.
Hindi rin po at the time.
Parang kayo ho ata may kasalanan kung ba't di kayo na rin yun ng 2014 to 2016. Hindi ho kayo nakipag-usap sa mga dapat kausapin. Tama po kayo, naintindihan ko. From time to time, may tampuhan. I was there during that time. And we had also some skirmishes. I would recall that I would call ABS-CBN and the lawyers would be there and we would be discussing ano yung ginagawang broadcast ng ABS. No? Pero, it is, again, if you look at the history of ABS-CBN and the Lopez family, natanggal po sa inyo yan, na ibalik sa inyo ng Pangulong Cory, pero seemingly hindi nyo na ibalik when the talent was Chris Aquino, the daughter of President Cory Aquino, and the President is Noynoy Aquino, the son of President Aquino. I cannot see why it cannot be renewed at that time. There was very legal basis to do that. You could have done that easily. Nobody would question because some franchises would do it earlier than the prescribed date. Napakahirap pong mag-renew pag nandun ka na sa deadline. And there was no moral, to my mind, problem if you had pursued a renewal at that time. Would you like to give any statements to that effect? O meron po ba kayong gustong sabihin?
I don't think there's anything else I can add, Mr. Chair, other than that we did file for the renewal of our franchise application with Congress. And unfortunately for us, it was not acted on by the 16th and 17th Congress.
Ngayon po, isang statement lang, Mr. Chair, tapos na po ako. Ito yung nangyayaring hearing natin sa prangkisa ay dumadaan sa isang constitutional process. Meaning to say, hindi po to take over ng gobyerno. Hindi ho nangyari to during martial law when accordingly in the affidavit doon po sa affidavit ni Mr. Rameda, sinasabi niya, pumasok ang mga sundalo nag-take over. Dumadaan po tayo sa isang legal at constitutional na proseso. Ang Kongreso po ang may kapangyarihan magbigay sa inyo ng prangkisa. Dahil ito nga po ay isang pribilehiyo, ito po yung desisyon na gagawin ng Kongreso. Pag kami po ba nagdesisyon na huwag kayong bigyan ng prangkisa, tinitingnan niyo pa buto na isang pang-aabuso ng gobyerno o katulad ng diktadoryang Marcos na tinake over kayo? Gusto ko lang pumalaman kung ano ang pananaw niyo tungkol dito.
Your Honor, the prerogative to grant or deny a franchise rests solely with Congress. And while we're here to try and prove to the committee that there's good reason why our franchise should be renewed, at the end of the day, we respect the rule of law po.
Thank you, Mr. Katibak. And would you recognize this as a legal and constitutional process? And that later on, years from now, history will not say that we oppressed ABS-CBN or that we forcefully took over ABS-CBN.
We are present at these hearings, Mr. Chair, because we recognize that this is part of the process.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the reply of Mr. Katibak and Mr. Lopez on the questions about the history of ABS-CBN. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa inyo. Pasalamat din po na talagang nandito kayo. Alam ko ho, kaya nga tinatanong ko kung kumain po kayo kanina, alam ko rin hindi ka kumain. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikiisa dito sa ating pag-uusap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ABS-CBN, and to all my colleagues.
Maraming salamat sa mala-showbiz na pagtatanong ni Vice Chairman Mike Defensor. At wala na pong nakalista na magtatanong. Yes, Congressman Zarate.
Mr. Chair, some administrative matters lang. Napag-uusapan kasi kanina yung records ng arbitration. At in-scan ko nga itong yung desisyon ng arbitration board. Meron namang address, At nakita ko rito, yung secretariat is headed by Attorney Delcy C. At siya nga may document dito that he certified it as a true copy of that decision. Sa pagkakaalala ko, Mr. Chair, no, si Attorney C is now with the Energy Regulatory Commission. No? Kasi po, pag may sinabi kanina ng ABS, meron silang kopya ng mga ilang dokumento, eh kailangan ipa-certify pa uli nila yan doon. So, akin pong minamungkahi, Mr. Chair, is baka pwede ho nating yung Board of Arbitrators, no, na nag-conduct ng proceedings, na gusto nating malaman kung ano ang nangyari, will be invited if they're still around. No? If not, in the alternative, ay pwedeng imbitahan si Attorney C, who is now with, if I'm not mistaken, with the ERC as one of the division chief, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Zarate. Inaatasan po ang ating committee secretary na imbitahan ang mga miyembro ng Board of Arbitration nung panahon po na pinag-uusapan ang pagbabalik sa ABS-CBN, o kung hindi mahanap yung ibang miyembro ay imbitahan si Attorney C. So ordered. Dahil po wala na pong iba pang magtatanong sa usapin ng pagkakabalik muli ng ABS-CBN sa Lopez family, ay tutungo na po tayo sa susunod na mga issue, ngunit ito po ay sa susunod na hearing po natin gagawin sa Wednesday nitong linggong ito, 1 p.m. rin po, alauna rin ng hapon, at maghihintay po tayo kung matatapos natin ito ng maaga o kaya gagabihin na naman tayo ulit. Sa lahat po ng umattend ngayong hearing na ito, ang pag-uusapan po sa susunod natin na hearing ay whether or not ABS-CBN's application violate the 50-year constitutional limitation for a franchise, at kung makakaabot pa po tayo, ay pag-uusapan na rin po natin kung may violation po bang ginawa ang ABS-CBN sa pag-i-introduce nila ng ABS-CBN black box. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Congressman Marcoleta.
Huli man daw at magaling na ihahabol din. Kasi po, nakakalimutan ko po na i-manifest ito. Dahil po sa pagtatanong kanina ni Congressman Rodriguez, tinatanong po ang representative ng ABS-CBN kung may nalabag na provision ng saligang batas dito sa pinag-uusapan nating pagbabalik ng ABS-CBN. Nakalimutan ko pong itanong sapagkat nandun po pala sa likod ng papel. Meron po kasi...
Isang
Mr.
tanong lang
Chair,
po ba yan, Congressman Marcoleta?
Hindi ko na po itatanong, ipare-record ko lamang po. Sa aking palagay po, ang nalalabag dito sapagkat kulang nga yung record, walang closure, Section 28, Article 2, 1987 Philippine Constitution. Ang sinasabi po ay ganito: subject to reasonable conditions prescribed by law, the state adopts and implements a policy of full public disclosure on all its transactions involving public interest. Ito po yung parang nabaliwala sapagkat hindi tayo nakakita ng record, full disclosures ng transaction ng gobyerno kung ang pag-uusapan po ay pagkakabalik ng ABS-CBN sa kanila. Salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Marcoleta. At kung wala na po tayong pag-uusapan ngayong gabing ito,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we suspend our hearings until Wednesday, 1 p.m.
there is a motion to suspend our hearings.
Second.
Duly seconded. Hearing no objections. Hearing is suspended.
Hearing suspended.